All right, let's go. Let's see what's going on here. So we're going to work through some job stuff. I'm going to leave this in the background because we're going to talk about that here in a little bit when we get to the networking questions that get asked, because networking questions do get asked in some of these. And hold on, I want to pull up also a Killer Coda instance so we can just go into Killer Coda. And the topic of today's stream, on Fridays we don't work too hard because it's the end of the week, but we're going to work on helping people find jobs. The economy right now, at least in the U.S., there's still a lot of layoffs going on in the tech world. So I think it's a smart thing to keep yourself kind of up on what's going on. Like understanding, what you're doing and getting better at whatever your craft is, I think is a thing that you should kind of think about doing. If you're not in the Linux world and you want to get into the Linux world, hopefully this will give you some good ways to start it. All right, so over here, you might notice we're on line 322 because we've been going through these for quite some time, and these are all up in the Discord, so if anybody wants them, they're in the job section of our Discord, right? But I'm going to go ahead and pull up a, this is funny, this is their playgrounds, but then it looks like they've got some different playground environments, so maybe I'll go look at that here in a little bit. Well, I'm just going to drop into a 2-node environment. If anybody wants to go and do the same thing as me, here you go. There it is. And it should show up on both sides. Yep. And I'm just going to leave that up in case I need to do any Linux, right? That's the topic of what we're talking about here. And the first number here, the first one that we're going to look at, and these all come from real job postings. And we're just going to work through some of these answers. So, what are we doing here? What are we looking at? What happened was a couple weeks ago, we were doing the second week of our professional Linux users group. Yeah, it was week 2, and not our group, but our actual systems administration course that we're running. And what happened was I made everybody go out and find jobs that were interesting to them. So people went and found jobs that they wanted to do, and we kind of squeezed those down into these tasks. These come directly from job boards that are out there in the world, and we're looking at, can we do these things, and what do we need to kind of know about within this space. All right, there's some things that I guess you wouldn't really be able to put a number on here. You wouldn't really be able to do anything about, but we'll still put numbers on these. Oops. Keep missing that. There we go. That's those are a couple of pretty standard ones. All right, so let's go through this one. So the first duty is provide frontline support to employees. So this is one of these know your customer. And then if you're going to provide frontline technical support to employees, you're probably going to get work tickets from internal ticketing, right? People are going to be internally ticketing and sending you things. That's where you're probably going to get a lot of your tickets. You're probably going to see some stuff like ServiceNow. I kind of show you guys this sometimes, but ServiceNow is... man, I wish I could type. ServiceNow is this tool that a lot of people use for just kind of maintaining their systems and doing what's called change management. Let's open the image in a new tab and see if that looks pretty good. Yeah, so in this case, actually, this is one that I use. I pulled this picture for our training last week, but you've got, in this case, container vulnerable items, and maybe this is coming in. There's a lot of API integrations that can happen here, so you can have somebody doing right here with the container vulnerable items, something can automatically be going and scanning, like Trivy. Trivy is a scanning tool, and you could set that up that its output goes to an API and just generates these open vulnerable items if you wanted to. So there you go. Robodom, thanks for showing up, and SciTalks, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. We are kind of just going through getting the job, what might this look like. And ticketing comes from maybe something like ServiceNow. A lot of you have probably used a tool called Jira and Jira boards, right? And that's Kanban methodology. And what a Kanban methodology looks like is this. What does a Kanban board look like? If you've never seen a Kanban board, it's the idea that we can kind of move stuff through these different, it's not going to be viewable. Let's see if we can get this here. All right. Yeah, this might be a good Kanban. Let's open that in a new tab and see if it comes up better. All right, that's fine. It's backlog selected, and then you'll take those in a Web 3.0 type interface and actually drag them over, right? It's like a very responsive type interface. Give me a second real quick. I got somebody pinging me from work. Okay. Tell them no rush. Okay. But this is, in a Kanban, there's all kinds of systems for Kanban that'll help you get work and then manage your work tickets that are coming in. But the point is, if you're providing frontline technical support to employees, you're probably going to want to know your customer. You're probably going to get tickets. Those tickets are all going to be bound by SLA. That's your service level agreements. And those are typically going to be around, time to, initial or time to start of work. And then maybe, whatever total resolution time. And what managers and other people really are looking for here is a thing that, this comes up all the time. It's called KPI, key performance indicators. If you are a operational person, if you're an engineer and you're supporting a team, or you're actually an administrator on the team and you're trying to support your team in whatever way, the primary key performance indicator of the operations team is uptime. Uptime is king. Look, XKCD has made jokes about it, right? XKCD, uptime, uptime with an admin, right? And let's see if I can just find it. Admin. What'd they call it? System administrator, yeah. And man, where is it? It's Devotion to Duty is the name of the comic. But yeah, we took the hostages, secured the building, cut the communication lines, like you said, excellent. But then this guy climbed up the ventilation ducts, walked across broken glass, killing anyone we sent to stop him. And he rescued the hostages? No, he ignored them. He just reconnected the cables we cut, muttering something about uptime. Shit, we're dealing with a sysadmin. And that's how sysadmins think. Like, everything we do, our primary key performance indicator is uptime. Everything else is kind of after that. Now, you might say, well, hold on. How does that work then with this ticket that you're getting from your customers? Well, some aspect of what your customer needs is not being fulfilled. So they are not up in their mind for whatever their service is supposed to be. So sometimes we need clarification. Sometimes they're asking about, and this is where things start to diverge. People will put in tickets. They'll just put in a trouble ticket or something for something that's really like a service request or like a feature request. And that's not always operations' job. Operations' job is to triage it, though. We always triage tickets, right? We actually did that. This was kind of fun. Today, somebody mentioned that they had just had a job interview, and then they kind of dumped a bunch of things that they saw, and I asked them if I could use it. So that's actually at the bottom of this list. So we'll go over that here in a little bit too. But one of the things he got asked to do was how would you triage 2 tickets? How would you say who's the most interesting or who's the most important to go if 2 tickets come in? And I asked him, I said, have you been doing our stuff? Because that's exactly what we've been doing in our sysadmin course, was go and understand how that kind of part works. So anyways, provide frontline technical support to employees. That's the requirement. And I'm saying this is kind of the things you're probably going to deal with there, right? You're going to have key performance indicators for your whole team. You're going to be dealing in uptime and then time to resolve. You start to talk about these, there's all these M values, MTTR, MTTD, mean time to detect, mean time to resolve, mean time to repair. There's a bunch of them, right? Resolve and repair are kind of interchangeable. But the point is, you've got to start thinking in that way if that's who your customers are, right? Like who do you service as a component of this organization? And then you'll know how to keep them happy. And when you know how to keep them happy, you'll know how to get better performance reviews. And then eventually, hopefully, being a sysadmin for a while will move you over to like systems engineering, and you'll be able to build newer things, right? Because that's tends to be what we do in systems engineering, right? So in this next one is monitor incoming support requests and respond promptly, provision and track user workstations. All right, so this one, we're gonna say as above, right? So this is just as above. These two basically roll together. I was talking about one, but look, you're doing the same thing. Monitor incoming support requests and respond promptly, as above. All right, so provision and track users. So this is inventory, right? So we're talking inventory. So labeling, I think there's two L's in there. I'm not sure. We'll just say putting label. Tracking serial numbers. Man, my finger's not working today. So tracking serial numbers, keeping, so yeah, provision and track user workstations related equipment, keeping inventory or keeping records, right? It's one of these things where you got to be good at keeping records, what's going on with your systems. Oh, and then look down here. This one is the same thing, as above. But you may have to audit what is actually there, is what's on the books. Can I tell you guys a story real quick? This isn't, I'm not telling tales out of school or anything, but when I first got out of the Army, I worked for a school district called the Peoria School District, right? It's here in Phoenix. It's up in Glendale, actually. But anyways, my wife still works over there in the help desk. And when I left there, I had this kind of protege who, he was, what was his name? His name was Kyle Adair. I don't mind saying this because this is out there. And what happened was he took over. When I left, he was a LAN 1. And then a few years later, he moved up to like a LAN 2, which was my position when I left. And what happened was this. This goes to inventorying and maintaining stuff. He was responsible for taking the newer Cisco, access points and putting them out at all the high schools, all the grade schools and stuff. And what happened was he wasn't doing that. He was instead bundling them up and selling them on eBay and keeping the money. And he did this to the tune of many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he went to jail and then prison. And I'm pretty sure he just got out of there in the last little bit. So this happened probably 5 or 6 years ago, and he just finally got out. But the reason I bring that up is to say he was caught by one of the high school principals, or I forget who the principal was. It was the principal kept insisting like, hey, these things are not as they should be. So then the principal actually went up into the drop down ceilings and went up and looked and got all the serial numbers and kept sending like, hey, this stuff isn't as fast as we think it should be. We're not getting the performance. Hey, check these serial numbers. And then somebody else finally came in and said, hey, I got to check this out. And they go, wait, this isn't right. These are all the old serial numbers. And Kyle was insisting he had done that school. He had done this at a bunch of schools. But only one person driving a good inventory was the reason he got caught. So it was kind of like this whole big thing after that, and it's a terrible story, but that's what happened to this dude. Yeah, he spent some time in prison. You can go look it up. In the if you look in Glendale, Arizona area, that's what happened. So, anyways, manage IT inventory, and then this one says maintain and order IT supplies as needed. So this is going to be easier the better you inventory. A lot of times in the HPC world, we will keep old systems and parts. But even then, even if you had old systems laying around for parts and you could pull those parts to put in other systems, you don't just want your, server room and your like little supply room to the side to look like a junkyard, to look like something out of like the Star Wars movies where Anakin's just pulling parts out and making these bots and stuff. That sounds terrible. That's just a big sprawl and mess. So you have to be good at keeping track of what parts you have, not ordering extra. If we have enough cables, because we kept all the power cables from our last server that we pulled out, we pulled out a whole, after 10 years, we pull out a whole generation of servers and we put in a whole new generation of servers. And we've got all the cables and all the, all the power cables still, and those are all still good. We don't need to be ordering more of those with the new systems above the ones that come with them, right? Yeah, keep a good inventory. That's kind of always true, right? This next one speaks to identity and access management. So, issue employees ID cards and security tokens, identity and access management, revocation of credentials is important as well. You need to be able to take a call. If you're the on-call, you need to be able to take a call in the middle of the night and revoke those credentials immediately, right? And in real time. And if you can't do that, your organization may be sitting on somebody with like root admin permissions all weekend. So I was working at a big college. You guys know I've worked with Redline for quite some time now. And I was working for a college with them, and I was the on-call one weekend. I want to say this was like Saturday night. And I got a call from one of our other software. So we kind of had like the hardware team. Like I did all the hardware in Linux and all the networking and stuff. And then there was the kind of user interface team. So we were all part of the same team on this big project. We had this high performance compute with like 1,260 something nodes, all Linux, right? And what happened was one of their admins. So we were the main admin team that had root, but this other team that was kind of like our sister team, one of the guys sat on his phone weird, did something weird, and it sent some emails to his boss that looked like some real bullshit. Like it was just a bunch of letters, and so it looked like the quadratic formula exploded, right? It was just a mess of letters and stuff, and we were like, that's not good. So what we did, thinking that he might have been compromised, is we ripped out all of his access, and then I went in the system and made sure that none of the processes across all the servers were capable of being run by that user. There's ways to do that. So like, let's say I only have 2 nodes here. SSH to node 01, and we've got these 2 nodes here, right? So I'll just VI some file, doesn't really matter what it's called, and I'll say control plane and node 01, right? So now if I SSH, if I just for server in, and then we'll just do it this way, cat some file. We could also use Ansible for this. Ansible makes this easier, but we'll do it like this. This is the old way. Do SSH to server, and then in the server we'll just say like uptime done, right? So we'll hit the 2 servers, and then if I had to verify that he wasn't there, I may do like a ps-ef, grep for his user. Maybe his user is like I don't know, Donald or something like that. Is Donald there? Donald's not there, but I would be able to see the SSH with the commands. That's fine. It's not a big deal. But it's not there. Let's say I wanted to find some processes that were there. Let's say we looked for, what's a process that I know should be there? Systemd, let's just say. And now I found these Systemd processes. Let's say they were started by him. And what I could do then is I can erase all. There's 2 ways to get rid of this. You could either do, instead of this, just do a pkill -9 for his user, right? Some user. In this case, like let's say Donald. And this would kill everything from that user named Donald. Now it's not a real user, so whatever. But we could kill all of their processes off and thus stop them from doing whatever they were doing. I had already axed his ability to log in. I already stopped that. But if something were running in the cluster, right, because you kind of launch jobs in from the job head nodes, so I wanted to do that. Already suppress or log in? Yes, I put so. Yeah. Actually, so what I did with this user was I took his whole home directory and moved it over so that he couldn't do any of that with his keys. So I got his keys out of the way. We didn't let root log in anyways, that's for sure. And then we just made sure that he couldn't access the cluster anymore, right? And and then, by the way, we found out the next day it wasn't even that big of a deal. He was just doing something. He had installed something on his phone, and he was in the wrong screen or something. Honest enough mistake, but it was weird because it was 2 emails, right? But we took preventative measures. But the point is, you have to be ready to revoke somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people get let go on like a Friday or something, and somebody has to be able to do something about it. So these are the kind of things that are there. Yeah, and then T. Burton, Donald already set permit root login. Yes, yeah, but then like most people that are, he's actually, this guy wasn't a systems administrator. He was more on like the software side. They always forget to restart the SSHD service, so then it just sat there inert until we caught it with the next time our Ansible playbook ran and looked for anything that had changed in our config files, right? So there's a lot of ways that these things happen, right? There's a lot of things that can happen. So, all right. So this one's important, right? So create and maintain. And this, I would tell you, learn some Markdown. And then I would tell you, you know, you may have to build. If you don't have a good documentation platform, one is MediaWiki. MediaWiki runs Wikipedia, so like most of you have probably seen it. Yeah, Ameth, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. The goal of this is to get you guys doing this stuff and being professionals about it. So right now there's a lot of stuff that's talking and not a lot of stuff where I have to go actually get in there hands-on. But yeah, create, update, and maintain new and existing procedure documentation. So learn some Markdown, build a documentation platform if you don't have one, or just update documents in place. But this all comes down to your note-taking. So I've shown you guys this before. I use different note-taking systems for different reasons. I really like Notepad++. That's why I have all of these open. But one of the things that you'll find if you hang out long enough, or if you talk to me at all and ask me for any of this stuff, is this right here is my raw notes. What you're looking at here, this is raw. I would never like professionally send this to anybody. This is my understanding of the things, right? It's got to take one more pass to get cleaned up to like a procedure level, if that kind of makes sense. Whereas like when I'm ready, some of you guys have seen like this is more like maybe I'm doing a presentation or something, and it'll look a little more, this looks a little more cleaned up and kind of ready to go. This was last week's. I've got it set for this next week though, but this is last week's stuff still, right? And then I walk through things. By the way, remember I said earlier that was one of those things I had stolen for myself, or this was the same picture that I had used. There you go. And then this was the Kanban board that I used for last week. All right, so let's get this out of the way. Your note taking is also terminal notes. I've shown you guys this in people that have done our Linux Systems Administration course, which by the way is free on Discord. We're in week 4 of it starting tomorrow, and it is a 16-week course that we're doing on learning how to get into doing this stuff as a Linux engineer, Linux administrator, Linux engineer, right? So terminal notes, I've shown you guys that screen or Tmux can take notes for you. So you can have screen or Tmux take notes for you, but they're going to be extremely raw. They're just going to be a dump of everything. But you can go search that for commands you did and output, and then show that kind of stuff in there. I'll pull up an example for you guys. Hold on. Let me just get that out of the way here. Let's say file, open. See if I got a recent example of this. Hold on. This one. So this is our Linux Systems Administration. This is up in the Discord as well. But what I want to show you is this. Maybe in a presentation or in a documentation you need to grab a block. You can grab stuff like this as well. You can grab screenshots. Then you just need to remember that somebody's not going to be able to highlight that. There are actually some programs. I think OneNote can do this. Let me see. I haven't tried this. I'm pretty sure OneNote can do this. Hold on. Let me pull up just like a new page here in OneNote. I'm pretty sure OneNote can pull sometimes it can pull text out of images. Not always, but I'm pretty sure OneNote has that capability. We'd have to play with it a little bit, but you can get stuff out of there. So anyways, by the way, you might know Scott also uses OneNote. I use a lot of different programs. I use Zotero. Oh, where's Zotero at? It's not even up right now. If you haven't seen Zotero, I think I'm saying that right. Zotero is what I use for my doctorate work, right? This is a bunch of references and things that I've grabbed and used for a bunch of different stuff. Oh, did it copy? Sorry, I missed that. Hold on. You probably caught it because you guys were paying attention more than me. Sorry. Was there one? Copy text from picture. Yeah. Let's see what that pastes like. It's not great. It's not great, but it's better. I mean, that's accurate at least. Yeah, I mean, that's accurate. By the way, this brings up an important point. This is what I feel like it looks like when people do. Let me show you what happens all the time. People do this all the time. They go to a Linux system, right? My engineer, I've had to do this. I've had to fix my engineers a bunch over the years. But let's just do like a df-h real quick. And you say, here's my storage of my home lab environment. This is my jump box that people jump into, right? And here's the storage of my jump box environment. And I come over here and I just drop it right here like this. And then they send this as an email. And I'm just over there and I'm looking at this email later and I'm like, I have lived for 20 years down, again, I'm not trying to be a chat about this, but for 20 years, this is how I have made money to eat and live, is just living in a command line, right? I teach and other stuff too, but my point is, this is what I do all day, is command line, right? Black background, green or white letters all day. And I have no idea what this means. So why not, instead of sending this to somebody, why don't you just go do this? Why don't you just come over here like this? Watch. Why don't you just do this to them? Let's just move this over the side. Let's just go here. And let me grab my pen real quick. Let's go to my pen. Let's go to blue, right? And why don't you just send them this instead? Why don't you just draw this on the screen like this? It'll be like this, and like this, and then it'll be like this, and it'll be like this, and like this, and like this. Because you're basically telling them to go fuck off. Because you're not gonna, like, you see what I'm saying? don't really do that. I'm kidding, guys. All right. I'm a little loopy because it's Friday, right? It's like the end of the week. So yeah. Don't do that. That's the middle finger, right? My point in showing you guys that was to say that it's the end of the week, but no. My point in showing you that was this is like this borderlines on disrespectful right here. To send that to somebody and expect them, you can't even read that, and you just pulled it out of the terminal. So don't do this. No, I've seen a lot about Obsidian, Big Crypto Cat. I've heard good things about it. I just haven't jumped to Obsidian. Like, I use all these other tools because I've been kind of feeling them out, seeing which ones are good, seeing which ones I like. I keep coming back to Notepad++ though. Like, I use it almost exclusively, but a lot of people do really like Obsidian. Logsec also can do screenshots. So watch, I can grab this and I can hop into Logsec right here. And I can also do screenshots in here, which it's funny because when you go to look at it, it'll tell you the image, but then when you look at it, it'll show you the actual image. So yeah. I use a lot of, it's almost weird. It's almost like I just grab for whichever one's there or whichever one's I'm comfortable with at the time. And I just tend to go to Notepad++ a lot. So whatever you guys use, right? You have to feel comfortable with your note-taking process. And I tell engineers, like, if you sit and watch a video or something, this video even, make sure that you are going and if you want to learn something, I mean, obviously we can just hang out and not learn anything. That's not a big deal. But if we want to learn something from somebody, we should have a pen out or a notepad or something. And we should be looking for terms and words and things that we don't understand and just putting them down. Like, if I sit here and start talking about MTBF, MTTR, and MTTD, you may catch those, and then you may hear that I said that's mean time to resolve, mean time to detect, and mean time to repair, or mean time to between failures, MTBF. And you might say, okay, I get that, but if it's the first time you ever heard it and you write it down, and then you maybe put a little dash next to it and just say read more about this, one, you might remember it because you actually wrote it down or typed it out. And two, you'll have something to go spin off and study later. So I'm always kind of trying to get engineers to write stuff down, even if it's like I showed you guys. I have a physical notebook, right? Like I actually have notes in here. I guess an email to somebody, but this is the right that like I go in here and I have a whole system of how I take notes. And I've shown you guys that before. But this one says create and improve existing scripts for various processes. So this means that you're going to be well, one, you have to understand scripting, right? And then you have to be actively trying to improve things, which, by the way, kind of comes down to this thing I've shown you guys over here before. I don't think this is loaded up, but if it is, let's see if it'll put us on the right spot here. I don't think it's going to be in the right spot. Yep. So let me move this over. Let me back this out a little bit. This is also from some of our systems admin stuff. And I show you guys this, where this is the methodology that Cisco uses called PPDIOO. And you start a lot of times in your career over here. You operate the system. You keep the lights on. You keep, you're in the NOC or the SOC or the help desk, and you're keeping things running. Maybe you're an operations team, but you operate the system. And I tell you, like, the amount that you optimize the system versus the amount that you sit around in third shift late at night just reading your DC comics because nobody cares as long as that one little red light never turns on. That's kind of up to you how much you do this. So, but I'm going to tell you, the more you do this, the more that kind of stuff gets noticed if you're trying to get over here into the engineering side of designing and building and planning things. Yep. All right. So, actively trying to improve things. Then it says that you're responsible for configuring, administering, and maintaining workstation servers, network systems, including, there's always some kind of know everything. But a lot of times with this, they really just want to make sure that you know some things. They don't typically care that you understand all things, but you do need to know, networking systems. And because look, no Linux system that I've ever worked on has existed in a vacuum. I've worked on Linux systems that are completely cut off from the world, but they're still talking to each other. They're completely air-gapped from the world in any way. They will never talk out to the world ever. I've worked on a lot of systems like that in my time. That's probably been most of my career in the government and defense sector type things, right? But that being said, they have to talk to each other. They have to talk to something eventually. So you have to understand how networking works, TCP/IP type stuff. So, yeah, Oxblix. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff here, right? If you miss anything, just keep coming around, right? Don't let anything, if you get caught, if you're further back, just start wherever you're at and keep going. Like, that's one of the things about our little Linux systems administration courses. A lot of the stuff are standalone components. Now we're pulling them together, but they're standalone. So if you have to start on week 4, start on week 4 and then go review the other stuff when you have time, right? Help manage critical systems, right? So they want you to understand how to manage critical server systems. So this is triage, right? Understand what is important. This may mean if your organization doesn't have a BC, this is something you need to figure out. BC is a component of disaster recovery. It's called the business continuity plan. So you need to have or understand a business continuity plan. So what does that look like? Let's just go over here and say, let's just say that you were going to use like AWS for it, and you were going to have them helping you with a BCS. Some people throw a P on the end of it, business continuity plan. And AWS has some ideas for how you can do it. By the way, a lot of people are going to try to sell you a bunch about business continuity plans, but let's go see if there's any blogs, right? Does anybody have a good blog on it? Has anybody put together, there's a white paper on business continuity planning. We can go look at that in PDF mode, right? And then here, what's your business continuity plan? You have to do a business impact analysis and risk assessment. So what in the business, what operations that are happening are gonna what operations are happening that make you money, and what is the maximum tolerable downtime of those. So this is business BIA, right? Business impact analysis, right? And you may put a dash on that. And then you need to understand right here the risk assessment. And I've told you guys how risk assessment works, but we'll go over that here in a second. And then these things right here help you to understand what is making the business money, and oh, what's the other one I said? MTD. By the way, maximum tolerable downtime will feed directly into something that was said earlier, which is your RTO, return to operations. And part of your business impact analysis is also this is not part of maximum tolerable downtime, but this is the other side of return to operations. And it's RPO, which is recovery point objective. And sometimes people call this recovery time, right? So some people call this recovery time objective to keep it the same, but it's also return to operations is what people will kind of like, you'll hear it colloquially called that, right? So these are the things that you need to study and be able to talk about. But let's go talk about what does a risk assessment look like, because there's two ways that risk is done. Two ways that risk assessments happen. It's quantitative. Oh man. And by the way, when I get done with my doctorate, if I never see the word quantitative and qualitative ever again, it'll be too fucking soon. I have literally been just dealing with the words quantitative and qualitative for the last year. Like I'm almost done with the first year of my doctorate. I just can't even deal with them anymore. Qualitative. And does anybody know, in a risk assessment sense, what's the difference between quantitative and qualitative? I'll let you guys think about that for a second while I go pull up a risk impact thing. Let's see if I definitely have it here. And I dislike the name of this, but I named it for a class that I was teaching. But I hate the name of this. Where's it at? It's called Hacking and Risk Management. Yeah, there we go. I hate the name that I gave it, but by the way, I don't care if you guys know who I am, right? So let me grab this. Let me move this down just a little bit. And this was Kevin Mitnick. He died last year, I think. Yeah, he just died last year. But we're going to use some stuff that I kind of learned from him. Oh, by the way, here's your RPO and RTO, so disaster recovery. So now they start talking about DR strategy, which is recovery point objective and recovery time objective, right? By the way, does anybody want this? Does anybody need this doc linked right here? Do you guys want this linked to you? This is gold right here for this stuff, for the business side. In fact, this may work its way. This talk right here may work its way into this week's Linux stuff. Do you guys need this? Here, there you go. Boom. All right. Vibes versus numbers. That's a fair way to do that. That's a fair way to put that, Bogan Bits. I like that. Vibes versus numbers. Share, please. Share all the docs. Yeah, that's this doc right here. By the way, all of the cloud providers, I think this is because Azure, AWS, and Google are all very viable. So are Alibaba. If you guys don't know, Alibaba Cloud is well known around the world. Oracle Cloud is pretty well known. Those are 5 right there that I can think of off the top of my head. And by the way, if you were like, hey, I want to find out some other popular ones, how would I do it? Go to like the Terraform providers list and say, what are people all over the world using and supporting? And it's going to be those ones. It's going to be that Alibaba Cloud. There's some other ones outside of the US and Europe that are actually pretty viable for services, provided that you can provide your services legally for your home country in there. And that's something for you to go find out. Where I'm going with that is because of that robust, man, like the internet, right? The internet really fosters competition, whatever you want to think about that. And I can tell you that there is so much documentation out here that like nobody's trying to hide anything. They're like, hey, look at all this stuff you can do in AWS. I'll show you all the ways to do it. The only thing that's slowing you down here is your time to read this and study it. By the way, I had to learn and read all this stuff because of freaking getting my Solutions Architect Pro, right? I had to spend a lot of time. A lot of you guys that remember when I was getting that, I spent a lot of time studying for this, right? And understanding how all these pieces work. So anyways, business continuity plan, all that kind of stuff. Let me pull up. So let's talk about qualitative and quantitative. They want you to use their stuff, Enzo Bear. Yeah. So they'll show you how to use their stuff. That's exactly correct. But check this out. So this comes from a talk I did called Hacking and Risk Management. It's something I did for my college students a while back, a version of this. But I want to get you down into here. Don't worry about hacking. That part's not what I'm talking about. I want to talk about risk management real quick. So in IT risk management, and this is coming from the ISC squared way of doing it. So ISC squared is CISSP and CCSP, and I hold both of those. So here's risk management. What's the definition? IT risk management is the application of the principles of normal risk management that you would go learn in like an MBA or something, which I also have, to an IT organization in order to manage the risks associated in their field. So risk management that's applied to IT is IT risk management. It's just IT. It's all risk management, right? So what I'm going to show you is like the most basic way to do risk management. But IT risk management aims to manage the risks that come from the ownership, involvement, operation, influence, adoption, and use of IT as part of the larger enterprise. So the organization wants to do activities to make money, sell stuff to people, host websites, sell software, do whatever they're doing, and your IT just supports that. So I try to tell people a lot of times, you need to know when you go work for a company, you need to know, are you going to be making the company money or are you going to be costing the company money? So what do I mean by that? When I used to work at Lockheed Martin as an engineer, they sold my time to the government for many hundreds of dollars an hour that they sold my time to the government to then pay me what they paid me, right? But so I was making the company money. So I was like the rock star. Like I walked in, everybody like high-fived me, and it was like, no, they didn't really do all that. But the point is, it was that, yeah, I made less than that for sure. But then the other thing is, oh no, they definitely charge the government hundreds for. I actually sat in meetings and I know what they charge the government for my time when I used to build stuff. We talked about that, but the thing I want to talk about here is I've also worked at like AAA. I was the platform engineering lead for AAA, and we were the ones. So that's AAA, the insurance company, which is also a car club. CSAA is the insurance side of it. They're the ones I technically worked for, and I was the platform engineering lead, and we cost the company money. So like the developers and stuff that were building the apps on the platforms we built and ran, they were the ones that made the company money. Those people that had their uptime, we were a cost center to the company. And we, again, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but we were basically the stepchildren. If we both ran together to cry to our parents, the directors and stuff, about something happening, they were always like, oh, you mean operations? Why are you stopping those money makers from making money? And then we would have to do whatever they said, even if it was stupid, even if it didn't make sense, even if, like we would really have to have our ducks in a row to be able to argue with them about everything, which is a big part of why some of you know the story of how I got my CISSP. I got that just so that when I talked to our security team, that I could put that on my emails. It's the only reason. Got tired of them talking down to me. So I went and got the cert that's highest. Well, it's not the highest, but it's one of the, premier in their industry. And I did that just to kind of be able to shit on them whenever we would have email exchanges. So anyways, let's go back to risk management. That was a risk thing. We identify all of our assets. Look, let's just go full stop here real quick. If you don't know all your assets, you are not secure. If you don't know all your assets, if you don't know if you have 1,000 assets or 150 assets, that's a major problem as a systems administrator. That's a big problem as a company. You don't even know what your footprint is to know, like let's say you lived on a little island and you hadn't even mapped the whole island out as a country. How do you know people aren't just landing on the far side of it and just coming to attack? Yeah, you respect my authority. So identify all your assets. Then identify your threats. There's a bunch of ways to identify threats. What are you actually worried about happening? And the threats tend to come in we will look at what kind of, when we get to assessing vulnerabilities, but identifying threats are, what are the things that can potentially affect us, right? And part of identifying threats is knowing what your business continuity plan is, knowing what makes your company money, because that is, something that's a threat. Do I have a web page out there that's only back-ended by one old LAMP stack server from like 2004 and it's never been updated? That's a problem. Oh, it was CISSP when I got my CISSP, which is generally regarded as one of the top security certs around, right? Yeah, granted, on the management side of things, it's not a specialty cert, but still. And then we assess our vulnerabilities. So we take the threats that we know that are out there, and there's a lot of vulnerability databases and other things, and we check to see how vulnerable we are. There's two primary ways that I think to do this. Assessing vulnerabilities is like doing STIG scans internally, which would be what we would call like static testing of a server or whatever type of device we were using. That would be like a static test of it to see how it is set up. And then from the outside, we would do vulnerability scanning. And those tend to be things that come in through, you can either write them yourself, you can use tools like Nessus. Nessus is a big one from Tenable, as is, who's that other one? Not the CrowdStrike guys. Who's the other one that's not? OpenVAS is a vulnerability scanner as well. Qualys is the other one. Yeah, Qualys. One of my buddies just left Qualys a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I need to message him because now that I think about it, I need to message him on LinkedIn because I told him, hey, when you get settled in your new role, because he just went to be a C-level. He was a high-level director at Qualys for many years, and he just left there to be a C-level at another company. And I said, hey, do you want to come talk to my guys about Qualys and all these type of things? And he's the guy who gave me the little half rack of servers that sits behind me, the one that we turned into all of these things, right? All these servers we've got. Well, he gave me the hardware. I built all the servers, obviously, but he gave me the rack and some of the networking stuff, and then I had the servers. But vulnerability, we assess our risks, which is this next part, and then we decide how we're going to mitigate risks. We can do a bunch of things to risks. We can accept them, we can mitigate them, we can sell them or transfer them in some way. Typically, we call it selling risk, which is buying insurance. And we can accept risk, we can mitigate it, we can sell it, which is transferring it. We can avoid it. We can just avoid risk, right? Dipicus, I don't know. I probably could have went and worked with him at Qualys if I had ever wanted to, but you guys got to understand, like, while I'm a systems engineer because I want to be. They've been trying to make me a manager for like 20 years, and I won't let people pin me down to management. I like engineering. But I can tell you this, that's, by the way, if you just find yourself in 8 hours a day of meetings, you're already a manager. You just didn't know it. It's here. Congratulations. All right, let's talk about the difference between qualitative and quantitative risks. So how do we calculate risks? Here's our types of analysis. We can do quantitative analysis, always uses numbers, and it's always objective. Qualitative uses weights, high, medium, and low, or some type of thing, but it's subjective, and it takes a level of expertise to do. Managing is a different skill set. Also, you have to really want to wipe some people's noses and hear sad stories about stuff that I honestly don't care about. Some of you guys know I was an infantry guy, right? I was a combat infantryman, and I'll have buddies tell me stuff, and I'll just go like, "Here's a straw." They'll be like, "What that's for?" And I'm like, "Well, that's for sucking it up and driving on, right?" I'm just kidding. You can't say that too much. People get mad nowadays, but suck it up and drive on. And by the way, that was the mentality when I was in 21 years ago. Nowadays, you don't say that to people anymore because they'll do stuff. But anyway, so quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, these are the ways that we do them. These are the same exact analysis here. By the way, they're not real numbers. I just made them up. So yeah, T-Clipper, I hope this stuff's useful to you. We try to, as a group, right? Like, I'm just the guy who shows up for the Professional Linux Users Group. My goal is to get you guys doing this stuff professionally. Yeah, just like Maverick likes to fly jets. Yeah. Maverick could go do anything he wanted, right? But he's doing this. I'm the same way. I just want to build servers out. All right. And then there's a bunch of security risks and stuff. We're not doing that talk right now. We're actually down here talking about help manage critical server systems. They said these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words in this job. This is a real job that somebody found in our Linux group, and we were doing a talk last week, so or a couple weeks ago we were doing our discussion questions, and this is the one thing they said, and we went and found all this stuff that we could go study about. Right? These are things that we need to understand. This is fun, right? Propose and implement process improvements. So, what if like you were like, hey Scott, like I really want to be an engineer, but you know, I got to propose and implement process improvements, and I want to do that like an engineer. Who here? Most of you guys probably already know. People have been here before. You know what I'm going to say. There's TQM, and there's Six Sigma. Right? TQM is total quality management, right? And Six Sigma is your Six Sigma is a process by which we look at a normal distribution of outcomes, what we call DPMO, defects per million opportunities, and we try to get our DPMO under, I think it's 3.4. So if you have, let's say you're building bikes, right? And it takes 10 steps to build a bike across, so divide 10 into a million. So what is that, 100,000? Across 100,000 bike builds, those 10 steps will only fail 3.5 times. You will make a mistake of some point. And some of you are looking at that going, that's real hard to do. I put 3 bikes together and I have 47 errors. And I go, well, there was only 3 bikes. That's only 30 things that could have went wrong. And you're like, oh no, I put a hole in the tire. I did all this other stuff. My point is, that's what we do around here, right? We learn. And if we want to know how to improve process improvements, this is the MBA in me for a second. I'm gonna put on my MBA hat for a second here. TQM is driven from the bottom up, right? So this is your users or your people that are actually doing the stuff. This has to have a upper level champion. There should be nobody getting in the way of Six Sigma. But you say, well, Scott, you're typing all that stuff out, but that's not helping me. Well, if you go to our Discord, here, and you know, I was down here reading discussion threads, but you come over here to our beginner start here, and we've got a bunch of certs that are out there for free. These are all certs that I know of that are free to go take and free to study for. And there's a Six Sigma white belt that's free and a Lean Six Sigma white belt. Both of those are free to study and they are free to go take the test, right? So then you say, well, what's in the Six Sigma, right? I go to this Lean Six Sigma. What's going on in here? Well, the white belt exam costs nothing to take. And, you know, I've mentioned this before, but I would be open to running a study group for this if people want it. Where would we get our study materials? Well, right here. Here's all your self-study materials, and we can put it together. But one of the things they say here is we keep training providers honest. We're going to give everything out there to the industry for free. And then if somebody's going to charge you $4,000 for a weekly class, which I'm not going to do, then they would have to add some kind of value to it. That's what they say here. Because here is the PDF right here for the Lean Six Sigma. Let's see. Download it right here. And then I go in there and I start figuring out what Six Sigma means. What does it mean to do Six Sigma? What does it mean to be, there's some basic statistics, real basic statistics, like probably what most of you did by maybe your junior year of high school. But if not, probably by your second year of college, you hit the level of statistics you're going to do. In fact, that's probably the hardest math in here, right here. It's not hard, right? But they talk about that stuff. They walk you through. And then you say, oh, Scott, that was really easy. That was a quick read. You go past your Six Sigma white belt. All the training for the yellow, the green, the black belt, and the master black belt are all free. The training's free. But the tests start to cost money. I think they're 50 or $100 right there. There starts to be some cost to the test, but the first one's free. So my point in saying that is, if somebody's asking you, and if somebody were to ask me, if there's some way, somebody were to ask me for some way that I would talk about improving the processes that are going on in the organization, one of the things I would do is I would look first, are there any processes being run anyways? Or are we just running around like chickens with our heads cut off? Do I need to actually start to build initial processes around things, right? Processes are different than procedures. Now, if they ask you to write procedures, that's like rubber meets the road. These 10 tasks must be performed when this thing happens. And if they ask you about procedures, I can also help you with that. So they want procedures written. Well, does anybody here know that there's a place you can go get a bunch of free procedures? So we come over to Six Sigma, and I'm going to grab this just so we have it, right? So Six Sigma is here. Because these notes go up in the Discord later. I always add these notes to the Discord later for you guys. But if you had to write procedures, did you know that SANS.org has a bunch of cheat sheets, and then they also have their information security policies? And their information security policies, it says right here, are free to use for people. They were done in collaboration with other people who have written these procedures. And one of the ones that like every company on planet Earth needs, an acceptable use policy. Because, hold on a second, let me explain something to you guys. If you don't have an acceptable use policy, I want you guys to just blank your minds and think about this for a second real quick. If you don't have an acceptable use policy when somebody logs into your systems, right? And then you walk by somebody at work and they're just sitting there watching porn at work. Is that against company policy? They certainly weren't told so in an acceptable use policy. If you never told somebody that something that's not illegal, it's generally distasteful for a lot of people to watch stuff like that in public, but if there's no policy against something, how are you going to tell people that is wrong, right? It's the same thing happened in the early days of IT, where things weren't, like, it wasn't technically wrong because there was no law against it for you to go access somebody else's server. It wasn't considered wrong. Early on, did any of you ever remember this? Let's go back to MySpace. Let's go even before MySpace. Did you guys know that there used to be a way to pirate? What would happen, and this is why a lot of times domains are always set to not allow cross-reference image links. What you would do is you would just build a web page, and you didn't want to host all that bandwidth. So what you would do is you would go find the image on somebody else's server, and there would be a redirect in your page. So me going to this web server, I would just get the page, and then the picture that was coming would be coming from somebody else's website. Did you guys know that? That used to be a thing. That used to happen all the time. As a pen tester, had to sign off waivers of working with objectionable content to work as well-known adult industry site. Yeah, I'm sure sick in the mind. I'm sure that's a thing. I had a friend who, sysadmin work will take you all kinds of places, guys. One of my friends, he had another buddy of his who, he worked for a credit card company, and he would have to go to sites to verify whether or not what was on those sites was illegal, and or was going to be something that they could pay for or not as a credit card. And you say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm not going to give you guys too many examples, but I'll tell you one of the ones that, and I found this out because this friend knew a guy, where on web pages for credit card vendors, if it's two furries of the same type, that's acceptable. But if the furries are of different types, meaning like a rabbit and a turtle, I don't know, turtles aren't furry, but something, that's not acceptable, and they will not pay for that. And I know this now because my friend worked in that. Well, my friend worked with a guy who worked in that industry. I think he did some consulting with him. But anyways, the point is, it gets real granular. So people that were talking about doing different type of pen testing and having to maybe have to look at questionable content, that's the thing. By the way, when I worked at GoDaddy, I don't think this is still true on GoDaddy. I'm not 100% sure. I worked in GoDaddy 18 years ago. I worked for them. I ran their NOC. They used to have a policy of they didn't host porn on their websites. So there were actually things that would stop. There were actually algorithms that would run. This was 18 years ago. There were algorithms that would scrape all of our websites that we were hosting for flesh tones. That's the actual term, flesh tones. Nowadays, AI would be able to, but these models are getting so advanced, they'd be able to pick out, like they could identify people in things, right? They can identify exactly what's in a scene, but back then it was just like flesh tones. Well, it is really funny considering the way the old commercials used to happen. If you guys aren't familiar with the way GoDaddy blew up so much was because they bought $1 million buy. It used to be $1 million for I think 30 seconds, 30 minutes, 30 seconds. It was $1 million on Super Bowl, and they bought a Super Bowl ad, and then every year for many years they bought Super Bowl ads, and they would get longer and longer because they were making more and more. Yeah, I had a buddy that worked with them. He was employee number 80 over there. I was employee number a couple thousand. They were already pretty popular by the time I worked there, but we still had a hard time during the Super Bowl keeping things up because even with all of our redundancy, so many people would go to the site to look at it. So, anyways, all right. Employ tools such as Terraform and Ansible. I think we have a lot of material on this already, but maybe for newer people, I would tell you Terraform free training. That's on the HashiCorp. It's like developer.terraform. So I think it'll be there it is. You can get in there and just go start learning Terraform right now. They'll drop you in all these tutorials and show you how to connect to things and do all that kind of stuff right here. All right, so the tutorials are pretty good there. Ansible has less free training. There's a developer site from Red Hat, because Ansible's owned by Red Hat, which is owned by IBM, which is funny because they're both owned by the same company now, because Terraform's owned by HashiCorp, and then HashiCorp's now owned by IBM. So the two most popular provisioning tools, probably between the two of them, they probably do 95% of provisioning, if I had to guess, out there in the world in DevOps space, are both owned by IBM now. So anyways, Ansible is I have a bunch of things you guys can do in Ansible. Oh, look, our lab just finished, just ended. But I have a bunch of ones that I think are pretty good for getting you into Ansible. They're free. They don't cost you nothing. Killer Coda they've never charged me anything. I've been using them for many years. So, you go spend time in there and then you can talk about it. Yeah, IBM's controlling everything. Puppet used to have a training VM engine. It's nice. Nice. Yeah, Puppet's one of those ones that I feel like Puppet and Salt and what's that other one? Puppet, Salt, and what's that other one people use a lot? Both of those, like, or all of it. Chef's the other one. All of those, they still have their people using them, but I don't think anybody new's picking a lot of that stuff up. Yeah, it was Chef. We were talking Chef. Yeah. I just don't think people are picking those ones up new. And by the way, AWS used to have OpsWorks that worked with Chef and Puppet, and they are sunlighting, I think, or sundowning, or whatever the hell they call that when they get rid of it. So that's been going away for a while as well. This one, man, this one may be the crux of a lot of this, but you have to look for things to improve. And I would tell you, future you will thank you. And there's two reasons for this. One, you probably will get noticed, right? People are going to be looking and going like, oh, hey, I got to go to Scott. Scott's the one that knows how this thing works. And they, probably get noticed and maybe get promoted. But also, you will run into the problem again. So you're going to thank you that you fixed all the different use cases for a script or something like that. And then this is just a catch-all. You need to know all the things, right? But back here, right, they were talking about understanding kind of like the, where was it? It was right, no, that's the old one. This one was here. They talked about working with network systems and getting your system on there, right? SUSE Manager, Assault, nice. Yeah, I've worked with some SUSE systems, or SUSE, as people like to call it, which is just SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, right? No, SLES is SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, right? And I can never say the name right. I know it's a German girl's name, but I just don't, never bothered to make sure I was saying it right. Actually, I asked somebody one time, but I don't remember what he told me, but neither here nor there. Where were we at? Networking. Let's do some networking real quick. So this is my network template. And let's say, real quick, before we go into my networking, let's say that the question was, because the question came up in somebody's talk later, or one of the people went and did an interview today, and then they were kind of brain dumping the questions they were asked. Let's look at IPR. IPR is IP route, so it's IP route, right? That's the same thing. And this is showing us some numbers here on the left that mean something, but I need to understand what these numbers mean to determine the path that my packet's going to leave my network, right? So packet's layer 3, right? Packet has your source and your destination address. And my routing table here is going to use this, or my server here is going to use this routing table to determine where something is going. So let's just do a real quick ping of 192.168.11.1. That's my internal interface, right? And that hit. And then let's ping www.google.com, and that gave us 192.178.49.196. So let's just say that I was going to grab those numbers real quick, and I'm just going to put them over here. So since I can't remember anything that long, I'm going to move this off to the side for a second. Give me 1 second real quick. I'm just going to write these numbers up here. I got my little, you guys see that, my little stylus? And I'm going to say the first one is, so internally I went to, I would normally put them over here. So 192.168, 11.1. And then I also went to Google, which is 192.178.49.196, right? And then after them, we've got these slashes, but the slashes are going to matter here for how the routing occurs. So am I showing you guys something you haven't seen before? Because, by the way, I'm a networking professor, and I've been doing networking forever. But how did my system know? So if I wanted to send, if I look at these routes here, how do I know where my system sent this 192.168.11 address? So let's go over here and let's look through the routes. And this first one here is 192.168.122/24. Does everybody see that /24? Well, there's 32 bits across right here, and the 24 would be represented right here. This would be 8, this would be 16, and this would be 24. Now there's all these numbers in between as well, but this doesn't matter right now. And if we go back and look for 1 second here, let's pull our stuff up real quick. I wanted to send to 192.168.11.1, so my system went and looked, and it said, do I know how to get to 192.168.11.1? Now in this case it said 192.168.11.0/24, so that means right up to here it has to match. This is the 24. And did it match that? Yes. So then that would be a /24 here, and it would go out that interface right here. So this interface, 192.168.11.0 dev eth0, this is the one that was picked when I pinged my default gateway. That's the interface that was picked. Now, for a different reason, this one went the same way, but let's look at that. 192.168.178. Does that match? If you look in this one, the /24, do the first 24 here match? Does 192.178 match with 192.168? No. So throw that one out. That one's not being used. 192.168.11. Does that fit 192.178.49? No. How about 172.17 and then 00 because it matches to here? No. That's not going to match. Nope. And how about 169, which is an internal only, what we call an IANA address? That's not, right? Nope. But how about, so if I didn't meet any rule, I go out the default, to 192.168.11.1 on ETH0. So this one went out the default route, which happens to be, by the way, the same that one went out. But it went there for a different reason. And this is the kind of thing that this person was asked in this interview. And this is the kind of thing that matters here. Because it's not in the same network. Yeah, it definitely went like this. This is what was matched here, doesn't match. This is what would have been matched here, doesn't match. This is what would be matched here, because it's only to 16, doesn't match. This is what would be matched here, doesn't match. This is the catch-all as an else statement at the end of a bunch of ifs, if you want to think of it like that. Yeah, Killa. So that's how we do that. And then you might wonder, what are all these other things? These are for when I'm teaching subnetting. And if people want to know subnetting, I'll show you guys some subnetting. But there we go. All right. I can definitely do subnetting if we want. But for right now, what we had been doing was mostly just going through some of these different things to help us get the job. These ones, there's nothing really in here that's going to help much. So I'm going to take this all off. Understanding Linux and Unix and bash scripting. I think that we'll talk about that a bunch on the other ones. Killa, you want to do a couple practice ones? Yeah, all right, we'll do a couple practice ones. I guess if there's no objections, I don't think anybody's going to object. Most people probably don't really even care what I'm doing right now anyways. They're probably just hanging out. Because it is Friday, and we're just hanging out. Crossplane. I don't think I've ever used Crossplane. Well, let me rephrase that. I know I've never used Crossplane. So give me a second here. Oh, Crossplane. I mean, it's another tool. It's another tool. It's not bad. I mean, look, this is one of these things. Like, what are you willing to? This is always the consideration of a business. If I was going to run this professionally and put it into a production, do I have somebody I can ask questions to? Do I have a working community that I can throw questions back up to, or am I writing everything myself? And if I don't want to be in that business of doing that, I need to make sure that I have a pretty good community. By the way, this came up. We had Ash come and talk to us last month. Ash Davis came and talked to the Professional Linux User Group. Maybe it was just over a month ago now. And I really like this guy. He does really well. He's been a Red Hatter for the last probably, I think, 8 years or so, he said. And then before that, he was working at companies and doing a lot with open source communities. And he talked about a lot of how he had to write his own stuff. And that was the kind of thing. Bogan says, is there a CLI tool to ask the OS what it will do with a packet given a destination IP? So what you can do, Bogan, is right here. Routers do this. Routers do show IP route. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. In a router, when you do show IP route, it'll show you the route and all its routing table. But if you say show IP route and then you give a actual interface, it'll tell you what it would apply and then what interface it would send. I don't think we can do that here. Like, I don't think I can say IP route and then 192.168.11.1. I don't think that'll work. So I don't know if there's any command line tool. Yeah, traceroute will show you the path it took. And it's trace RT like that in Windows, but it's traceroute. Well, all one word in Linux. I mean, but a lot of times this will be blocked off so you won't actually see, like, I'm going to have things not responding. But I can see how my system jumped all the way out and I can map my network. Yeah, sure. And in fact, that case, I only got one thing that didn't respond. That's probably inside of the Cox provider, which is my internet, or it might be somewhere in the other way. But normally you can't map all this stuff out like this. A lot of times things will stop you from doing that. So, okay. Let's clear that up real quick. Get this out of the way. What were we looking at? Hold on. What's our next little part? So, I was going to do some networking. All right, so let's get this all out of the way. So, boom. Erase all link on slide. Do you have, by the way, I'll do it like this. Does anybody have one? Interesting. IP route get. That looks interesting. We could test it, right? That's one of those old sayings: a test is worth 1,000 expert opinion. Does anybody have one of these they want to see? I can just start doing one, and I'll show you guys. So let me ask this, and I always ask this to a group, and I always, with my college students and stuff, nobody will ever admit that they need help. But let's just say, does everybody here understand the difference between like a decimal numbering system and a binary? It's perfectly okay to say I'd like a refresher on that, and I will go through it. But some of this stuff you have to just practice, or you have to learn. I didn't learn this the first time I saw it. It took a while. But I will go all the way back to the beginning if you guys want, and we'll run up this whole thing, or we can just start going. Killa, you might have to drop that. Will you drop that in Discord, or just break it up here with dots? That's the only way, because that didn't come through for me. You could drop it here. You just have to put dots in it, or say DOT, because it's gonna think that it's a domain name and it's not gonna send it. So. Yeah, Nezor, the difference between a tebibyte and a terabyte have been, yeah, they're out there. Killa, just drop it in general. Drop it in general. I don't care where you put it. Or, I mean, wherever, I don't care. People are stopping by, that's always good. Our bot says hi to everybody, in case you guys didn't know. I also wave to people sometimes. Alright, that's a perfect one. Good. Alright, let me get this. I'm going to throw this, actually, let me throw it over here in my notepad real quick. Let me throw it, I need to throw it in something that's not on the screen, so give me a second real quick. Boom. And then, okay, so I'm going to do it right here. I don't mind, by the way, guys, I don't mind doing people's homework. I'm a college professor. I've been doing people's homework for a long time. So we got a 202.192, 230, and 64, and /19, right? So I'm going to walk you guys through everything here. But if that's acceptable, does that look good to you? Is that what you needed? Okay. Let's start all the way. Yeah. I'll show you the answer to this one 100%. I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning for some of you guys, all right? Because look, not everybody here. Sorry, I got a bunch of like dust on here. All right. Not all of you have done numbering systems maybe in recent time. So let's start right here real quick. I'm going to start with something that's going to get deleted here. But I'm going to do 3 dashes like this. And I'm just going to write something up here. I'm going to go 5, 7, 3. And if I put a dollar sign in front of that, what is that right there? Who knows? Like, can somebody tell me what that is? I put a $sign in front of it, and then it's this. What is it? Does anybody know what that is? And while you're telling me, I'm going to go over here and just start doing this. Right? Not a variable. What I'm saying, I'm sorry, I'm not being tricky. What is that? No. There's a $sign in front of this. It's decimal. Okay, it's decimal, meaning that there's states of... Okay, yeah, but how much money is that? Would we say naturally that's $573? Yeah. It's $573. Perfect. Okay, I was looking for somebody to spell it out. But why is that 573? We can only represent 0 through 9 in a 10-base numbering system. So this is how some of you might have learned this in like 6th grade, and then you summarily forgot it because all I use is money, right? We need to know this, so I'm stepping all the way back, guys, so that we can run up to the problem down here. But so this is the ones column, this is the tens column, and this is the hundreds column. But why is that? It's because anything to the power of 0 is 1, sorry. Anything to the power of 1 is itself, and anything, then you just do the math, right? So, 2 places means hex. We could use we could do this in hex too if you guys want. But we're doing it in decimal, which the reason this is a decimal numbering system is because there are 10, right? States of nature, 0 through 9, that each of these can exist in. So what this actually is 5 100s 7 10s, and 3 1s. If this were in your wallet, it may be 5 100s, 7 10s, and 3 1s. Probably very unlikely. But the point is, that is how we're representing that. Because we have 10 numbers, 0 through 9, that we can use, 10 states of nature that can occupy each of these. So here, as a bonus, if you look at this, how many states of nature, how many numbers can we represent with this? How many numbers do you think we can represent with these 3 decimal places here? How many total different numbers can we generate right in here? That's not correct. It's 1,000 because 000 is a number. Now, how many dollars could I count? 000 would not be a number. So it's 000 gets you, but it's not. Yeah, but hold on. We think because we always start counting at 1 that 999 would be right. Yes. So I wasn't trying to trick anybody. I wasn't trying to make anybody feel bad. But let's get that. Let's leave that for a second, and then down here in a numbering system that's binary, I can only represent. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Hold on. I need to get rid of that. Just like my shame of not being able to draw on my little stylus here. But I have the stylus because I want to be better at drawing on this stuff. I have a 0 and a 1. So I can only represent... Yeah, Nezor, yeah, I said that. Yeah, this is base 10 numbering is what this is called. This is base 2 numbering down here. So I can only represent 0 or 1 in any of these locations. So 2 to the power 0 is the 1s column. 2 to the power 1 is the 2s. 2 to the power 2 is the 4s. And then we see all the numbers here. There's Fisherman. Now, what can we represent here? If we take all the numbers and set them to 0, we have 0. And if we take all the numbers and turn them on, what's the highest number we can represent in there? Somebody's got it. 255. 255 is the highest number that all ones in here would represent. That's exactly right. So, if we know that, then all of this stuff starts to make a little more sense. I'm going to erase this in a second because I think you guys got that. I'm going to pull this off. But then we're going to break this down and we're going to find... I'll show you guys the quick way to the answer, but then I'll show you the full breakdown of everything if you guys want as well. So let me erase this real quick. Get rid of all this. And you might say, why don't you just erase all the ink on the slide? Well, because I still want the other end. What the heck is that? Some kind of community gift. Oh, nice. Thank you for that. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys, right? Like I try to do stuff that shows you guys important things. And hopefully Fisherman got one of those. I actually have date night starting. By the way, date night's starting in about an hour, so that's why I got on a little early. Me and the wife do date nights on Friday. I get to pick the movie tonight, so do you know what movie we're watching? Who knows what movie I'll make my wife watch when it's date night? By the way, that's not a trick question either, but let's keep going with this. So I'm going to do a process here of taking this number that can only be 0 to 255, and we're going to... No, you know what? Joker's interesting. Hackers would be fun. Then I'd have to look away. Like, I'd have to look away when Angelina Jolie shows her... what's the technical term nowadays for you guys? The booba? Is that what you guys all say now? A walk in the clouds. A funny story about a walk in the clouds. Un paseo por las nubes. Right? We watched that in. But isn't that what they say? Like Bob's and veg. All right. Anyway, so let's do some things real quick. I have these letters down here: Class A, Class B, and Class C. There are 2 other classes of addresses that you will not run into often, and very cleverly they are named D and E. But I'll talk about those in a second. In the first octet of a Class A, you have 0 to, well, typically like 126. But if you look at the first octet, that's this thing over here on the left. That's the first octet, second, third, fourth. Is this between 0 and 127 for Class A? Or is it a Class B, 128 to 191? Or is this a Class C address, meaning that it's between 192 and 223? Or is it a Class D, which is actually 224 to 239, and then E is 240 to 255. But I don't have that on there because most of the time you don't need. It's a C. So what does it mean that it's a Class C address? By default in a Class C address. Now this is where it gets a little weird because Class C addresses can be addressed a little differently, and in this case, this one technically is addressed differently. Class C tends to be right here to start. We have 24 network bits to start. Can I describe the problem? Yeah, so what happened was somebody gave me this address and then gave me this subnet, or this is a CIDR notation, classless interdomain routing notation. And they said, could you tell me how many networks are, or how many, how is this broken up? Well, so if this is assumed to have started at /24, that's not going to work because we're already past that. So we have to erase that line there. And I'm going to have to make an assumption here, because this technically doesn't work with most networking, but there is a way that it could work. And I guess I'm just going to assume, yeah, Class C shouldn't be /19. It shouldn't be. But let's say, just for fun, that maybe this was the original chop. So this was the original network over here. Although typically with a Class C, it would be over here at /24. Yeah, you can't typically cut a Class C like this. So what would happen is, let's just say that this was the initial one. And then we would say, okay, we went to /19, which is right here, right? And if you were to just ask me, okay, how many hosts per subnet? I've got an equation for that. How many hosts? So now real quick, my network bits here would be equal to 16. I'd have 16 network bits. My subnet bits would be 3 because they would be the bits here. And then everything that's left over is in the equation right here. Network plus subnet bits plus hosts equals 32. So I could say, well, 19 from that. So I'd say hosts equals 13. And then I would be able to say, okay, 3 borrowed bits. So real quick, hold on. This 13 right here is going to be put into this equation. So how many hosts are allowed? 2 to the power of h, which is 13, minus 2. So it's right here. Minus 2, so it's 8190. That's how many hosts per subnet are allowed in this. Took me a while to understand that mess back in 2010, then everything started using CIDR. Yeah, I learned CIDR in Cisco in the early 2000s, but here's the thing, you have to be able to translate between them. And the reason you have to be able to translate between them is because sometimes a computer is going to take this as a net mask, and sometimes it'll take this. So if this had to be turned back into a subnet mask, we would come down here, and all the network bits would become 1s. So all these network bits would be 1s. All these subnet bits here would be 1s as well, because they represent the network. And all the host bits would be 0s. So this would be 0s all the way out. And then we can translate that back, once we do that, to 255.255.224, because it's a 64 plus a, 128 plus a 64 plus a 32. It's 224, and then that's a 0. So if you were given this and you were told to write that network in, it would be 202.192.230.64/19 or 255.255.224.0. Tomahawks, I actually had to make this up, and I had to just assume that it was over here, because this is a bad example, because you can't really do that with a Class C address. So I was just making it up over here. Let's start this over again, and I'll use one. We'll erase all the ink on the slide, and I'll show you normally how we would do that. So let's start with one. Let's say we just had like a 10.37.14.12, and this one would be like a slash. Let's do a 17 this time. It'll be weird, but it won't be too weird, right? So it's a 10. So if it's 10 right here, which of these addresses is it down here? Is it a Class A, a B, or a C address? And how do we know? It's a 10 in the first octet. It's 10. It's A. Yes, A. Perfect. So if it's an A, we have 8 network bits. If we have 8 network bits, we're going to draw our first cut right here, and we're going to say 8N, 8 network bits. But then somebody before we got here, some architect or some engineer on our team before we ever got here, carved this network up. And they did it by going all the way over to 17. Well, this is 16 right here. So this is 17 right here. And then these 9 bits become subnet bits. And all the bits that are left over, up to a total of 32 when we add them all together, that should be 15 host bits, right? So we got 15 host bits. Class A, how do we know? So this first octet right here, see this first octet? If it is between 0 and 127, it is a Class A. If it is between 128 and 191, it is a Class B. And then if it is between 192 and 223, it's a Class C. If it's 224 to 239, it's a Class D. And if it's 240 and above, it's Class E. Now, Class E is experimental, and Class D is multicast. So we do multicast up there. So hopefully that makes sense. So real quick, what might I ask, like as a college professor, what might I ask my students? What might a CCNA or a Net Plus ask you out of this? They might ask you, how many subnets? So how many subnets are there? And then they might ask you, how many hosts per subnet? Right? So these are questions. And I know the answers because I've got these equations down here. So if I have 9 subnet bits, I could do this. I could count them. I can say, okay, the first subnet is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. This 0. The second one is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. All right, I need you guys to come back in like 4 years when I get done counting all these, okay? The next one is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. And I'm just going to count all the way up. No, because I'm not insane. What I'm going to do instead is I've got this equation over here. 2 to the power of subnet bits, which is 9. So 2 to the power of 9 is 512. So how many subnets do I have? I have 512 of them. I might have been able to finish that tonight. But that would have taken a long time. That'd be a long string of paper. But then how many hosts per subnet? Well, that's over here. How many hosts could I hold in here? And that's this equation. 2 to the power of host bits minus 2. Why are you losing the 2? The first one, which is all zeros, is the network. And the last one, which is all ones, is the broadcast address. So all the hosts just are in between there. Yeah, subnet ID and the broadcast. Yep, that's exactly right. So 2 to the power of H is 32,760. So 32,766. Right? Because that 8 is minus 2. So 32,766. By default. By the way, in AWS, you lose another 3. So you actually lose the first and the last. Right? So you lose the first because it's subnet ID. You lose the last because it's a broadcast. Then the first one up is the router interface, which you technically normally lose anyways. But then the one after that is DNS capabilities, and the next one is expansion and experimenting. So you lose 5 inside of there. So if you were to do a smaller network, you got to remember that you're losing 5 of your addresses right off the bat in AWS. So let's do a little bit of chopping. Let's do a little bit of stuff that's important as a task. This is a task you need to know how to do. I'm going to erase just this. This isn't there. And one thing you may need to know how to do, just to understand, is to convert from decimal to binary. Now, earlier we learned that this is a 0 or 1. Those are the only things that I can put there. And if this case, so you can't do a slash. No, you could not. No, Killa, you could not do a 30 or a, well, you can never do a 31. Slash 30 is the furthest you can go. Because when you do a slash 30, you're left with 2 bits left, and you have a subnet ID and a broadcast, so then you have 2. So when you do a slash 30 anywhere out in the world normally, you are doing what's called a point-to-point connection. So serial links use slash 30s all the time. But real quick on this. How do I take this 10, which is decimal 10, and stuff it down here into this? How do I do that? Does anybody know? We're going to start at the left. AWS slash 28 is the smallest. That makes sense. So let's take this, and let me just ask you, I'm just going to flip some light switches on and off for a second. Does 10 have a 128 in it? Like, can I squeeze a 128 out of 10? No. I'm going to turn that bit off. Can I squeeze a 64 out of that? No. Can I get a 32? No. Can I get a 16? No. But is there an 8 in a 10? Yes, I'm going to turn that on. Now I have 2 left. Is there a 4 in 2? No. Is there a 2? And there's nothing left. So let's do 37. Does 37 have a 128 in it? No. Does 37 have a 64 in it? No. But does 37 have a 32 in it? The answer to that's yes. Now it's got 5 left over. Is there a 16? No. Is there an 8? No. Is there a 4? Yes. That leaves me with 1, so there's not a 2, there is a 1. Now, 14. Is there a 128 in 14? No. Is there a 64 in 14? No. Is there a 32 in 14? No. Is there a 16 in 14? No. Is there an 8 in 14? Yes. And then with what's left over, which is 6, is there a 4 and a 2 with no 1? Yes. Now, 12. Can we do 12? Is there a 128 in 12? No. Is there a 64 in 12? No. Is there a 32 in 12? No. Is there a 16? And you might think that's silly, but when you first do this, you have to map these so you understand what you're doing. Is there an 8 in 12? Yes. And then a 4 with no 2 and no 1. You have to, yeah, Dipicus, you do need to know this for CCNA. And I tell my students this all the time. Because if you do the Todd Lamley book, right, which is, I learned Todd Lamley's book I started my CCNA journey in early 2000s. I started going to college when I was still in the Army. And I got my CCNA in 2002 while I was still just an infantry guy running around. They in Todd Lamley's book, and I think the guy's fantastic, but I think this is kind of silly. He says subnetting in your head, and then he just gives you all these numbers. And I guarantee like 1 in 100 could do that. But if you learn like a method like this, you can get faster at it. And I could probably do it as fast in my head as a lot of those people who maybe can naturally, I'd say maybe even like 1 in 10,000 can just do that by looking at it one time. And I could probably do it almost as fast as those guys, but only because I've been doing it for so long, right? And I have to understand this. But my point is, you'll look at this stuff and they'll ask you questions about it. Like they might ask you here, is this address, so is this a host, a broadcast, or a network? They might ask you that. They might say, is this a host, a broadcast, or a network? The footer of the presentation is a good tattoo to get on your arm if you start as a network engineer. Yeah. It's just like across your forearm right here. It just that. Here's a fun fact. I've actually asked this in the Discord before, and this one actually kind of went fun. This is definitely a host. Colchis is right. This is definitely a host. And here's why. Because a network, these would be all 1. Sorry, also it's all 0 for a network. Broadcast would be all 1. And if it was anything else, any other pattern than all 0s or all 1s, which would be the network at the bottom, broadcast at the top, would just be some host on the network. That's it. That's a host. Oh, so here's the fun thing. This a long time ago when our Discord was still well under 1,000 people, I asked this question. This probably got the most response of any. And it was, how many tattoos do you think I have? This was kind of a fun one. People had, and then it was like 0 to 3, 3 to 7. I think it was like 7 to 12, and then like I can't even count them anymore, like that kind of thing. And it was like, how many tattoos do you think I have? And then that was a big thing down in the Discord for a while. All right, so you've got to understand these things. You don't have to use this model. There's other ways to do this. This is the way that's always worked well for me, right? Do you guys want to see one more of them? Do you just want me to cut through one really quick? By the way, let's take this real quick while I'm waiting for that, and let's turn this subnet mask back from the classless interdomain routing CIDR back to a subnet mask. This would be all 0s, so this would be 255, 128, So this network, if you said what's the subnet mask for this newly carved down network of /17, it would be 255.255.128.0 or 10.37.14.12/17. Network pairs AB is a good one I've seen as well. Nice. Nice. All right. If you guys need more of that, I guess just let me know. So it's funny. I sometimes start losing people when I do those because people are like, "Ah, he's doing hard stuff." Well, sometimes engineering's hard, and knowing more things in engineering is rarely bad. Maybe for those guys that were doing the pen testing and other work in the porn space, maybe that's not good to know more over there. But there was some of that talk earlier. But in general, like knowing more in engineering is almost always better. The M on the bottom was the mask. Oh, yeah, this was just masked bits. And the masked bits are the network bits, and the network bits are 1s, and subnet bits are 1s, and hosts are 0s in the mask. 17 is the CIDR. It's the classless interdomain routing. It's a different representation of a mask. Sometimes you have to put this into a system. Some systems let you put this, a /17 at the end. How do I know that the mask has value? So this is what the mask does. If I was given this, and we know it's a host on the network, the system does a process called ANDing. Does everybody here know what ANDing is? ANDing is a truth test. ANDing is this is true and this is true. So if I said I went to the park and I went to the store, and then you found out later I only went to the park, did I lie to you? Yes, Scott, you did lie to me. Yes. So real quick here, let's AND these bits together to find the network. So this is the host on the network right here. 10.37.14.12. But the device needs to know what his network is. This is how he finds it. Is this and this true? No. 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 Is this and this true? Yes. Is this and this true? No, because this is false and this is true. True and true, true. False and true, false. Everybody see that? So we get to 00011010 for the network, which, by the way, is the number 10. Now, right here, same process. You can almost think of this like a platform. I'm going to get the number 37 because I can't change any of these. But then I'm going to get over here, and that's going to be 0. And then all of these, with all these zeros under them, are all going to be zeros. That's the network. So 10.37.14.12 in a /17 classes interdomain routing, which is the 255.255.128 net mask, belongs to the network 10.37.0.0. That's how I know. That's also how the system knows, but the system does it that faster than that. And it does it immediately. So then my system can determine, do I need to send it? So once it does this determination, it can say, is it going to stay on the network or not? So my device here, 192.168.11.0 or .245, this is the network internal IP address of my machine. He's a /24. So he's going to check to see, via that ANDing process, if something he wants to ping is on the network with him. So I'm going to ping www.google.com. And you're going to say, Scott, that's not an IP address. And I say, it's not, but DNS makes it an IP address. And then my system goes to send it. And how does it know to send it outside of this network? Well, this was that process we talked about earlier. 192.178.149 does not match here. So we test where it does match. We find it doesn't match anywhere. We send it out the default. So that's how the process of ANDing works. And you say, well, why did we match these? Why did we try to match these? Well, because that's what this system knows with the /24. 192.168.11 is my network. Everything in here is mine, or well, it's my network. Anybody that's not in here, which we immediately found on this 178, we immediately saw a difference. We would then send to somewhere else. It's not on the local network. If it was found to be on the local network, our system would just look it up in the in its ARP table. So it would go to its ARP table. It would send it directly to its hardware address right there. Yep, and ARP helps as ARP is when something's local, because hardware addresses only matter for the next hop, ever. You can extend. There's those the heck's the name of that, where you extend the MAC, you extend the VLAN across long distance. I forget what the name of that is. There's an extension. I don't really do networking as much anymore, so I don't know it, but it's kind of a thing that came out in the industry after I got done doing it. So maybe one of you guys knows. Fun story. I had a colleague who used to enter IP addresses with leading zeros like that. Fun part, Windows, at least XP back in the day, sees this and says the second and fourth octet are octal numbers. And yes, in their wisdom, they decided to use someone else's public class C as an internal address. Yeah, that's funny. That shouldn't work, but I mean, I guess if it did, you'd probably have all kinds of problems. Yeah, I think nowadays systems are probably, hopefully, smart enough for that. But all right. So where were we at? We were originally, as we started this, we were looking at job postings, and then we were looking like, hey, can we figure out what these responsibilities are? Oh, I love this one. That's one of the most honest things I've ever seen. Endless security improvements. Right? Provide technical. This one's let's go with 5. That'll be 6. 7. It just says Nginx. I love it. 8. These come from real job postings, guys. I didn't make these ones up. 10. They want functional knowledge, and they wanted a university degree. Well, the only thing I can help you with there is, but if you're not going to go get a degree, typically you take, so somebody wants 3 to 5 years of university degree, or 3 to 5 years of work experience. That's pretty fair. I'd say that's pretty fair, because a degree is 4 years. 4 years, and then a lot of times people would want most of what I see is like a 2 to 4 years, because 1 year of work typically is about 1 year of university is typically about half a year of work. So every 2 years of study a lot of times equates for most people as 1 year of working in the industry. So when you leave with a bachelor's degree, you have about 2 years worth of experience typically. VXLAN, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, Tomahawks, VXLAN. Yeah, VXLAN, I believe. That sounds right. Yeah, and you extend the VLANs across the WAN. But I never really did a lot of that. I kind of got out after I stopped doing pure networking in 2006. So I kind of jumped over to doing all Linux. I was doing Linux already by then, but I got out of being called a network engineer at that point. So because I told you guys before, like, I just didn't love networking. I tried to love it. I tried to be like, oh, this is interesting, I'm gonna keep doing it, and I was just like, I didn't really love it. It's fine. It's just wasn't my thing. Okay, so let's see, what's our time at? Where's my wife at? Let's see how far away my wife is. She might send me a message here. Let's do this real quick. I'll come back and keep working on stuff. Sorry for that address. Would the answer be 202.24.255 for the network address? No, the network address would never be 255. Hold on. Let me go back to that one. Assuming somebody could give you that address. Let's I mean, because again, this address doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But let's just say you had this 202.195. 224 dot hold on dot 255. Well, I don't know what the last one was, but let's say this /19. No, this is right here. So the subnet mask for this, if you had to go back, would be 255.224.0. That's what that mask would be. If that's truly a /19, and again, that's weird to me, but that would be where it would be cut right there. And that would be, so these would be all ones over here, and then it would be all zeros, and that would be 255, 255, 224, 0. Colchis, that's a way to think of it, yes. But again, I don't know where the initial cut of this would have been, but that's where it would be. Yeah, these are all ones. Right? 3 ones, and then those are all zeros. And then that's how it translates back right down there. Yeah, so this /19 is just a representation of how many bits there are. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's how many bits are representative of both the original network and whatever carved subnets you took. That's what that is. Again, I don't know where this one started, but it's because that's weird. I've never seen that. That's weird. But that would be the subnet mask right there. Oh, and the broadcast for that. Yeah, the broadcast in that network would be this. The broadcast of this network here then would be to turn all of these on. Okay, so the broadcast of this would be 202.195.255.255. That would be the broadcast of this. If that was truly what you had, the broadcast would be, because it would be 224 would be, yeah, it'd be 224 to 255 in this octet. Yep. So that's your broadcast for that. But again, that's a super weird network, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. But I guess it could exist. Could be somewhere out there. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to throw up. Where's Ranger Cam at? Let's see how Ranger's doing. Is Ranger is up and about. I don't know where Ranger is. I'm gonna turn myself off though for a second, and then for a minute, and I'm gonna say hourglass, and then we'll take a break real quick. I will say 8 minutes is fine. Take a break, and then do more job tasks. Right? Do a break. Take more job tasks. I'll be back. I'm gonna go get some more water. Drink some water. You guys keep an eye out for Ranger. I don't know where he is. Ranger's on the move. Yeah, the boss is walking. The boss is walking. If you guys don't know, that's an old movie. The boss is walking. It's from a Elmo movie. You would only know it if you had kids, probably, or you were a kid. Right, are you guys behaving over here? Oh, Ranger's back. There's Ranger. There's the boss. Ranger's back. Ranger has not gotten a treat. Oh no, I gave him one treat this morning. I gave him one of those little bacon ones. Those things are pretty. They smell like they'd be good, but yeah, that's Ranger. That's my dog. He's a pretty good dog. He is old, so he has been like walking like he's old lately. But I'll pop myself back up on here. Yeah, Ranger's back. Ranger's hanging out. I am drinking water. Got another water bottle over here now too. While we're waiting, while we're still on break, we've got a Discord. You guys are welcome to go hang out down in there. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. We've got a Linux Systems Administration course running right now. We are in week 3. Tomorrow we start week 4. It's a 16-week course. It's free. There's recordings for each of the previous weeks. So if you want to go watch those on YouTube, you can. Those are also free, right? Because I wouldn't even know how to charge you for YouTube. I guess you got to watch some commercials or something. But there's discussion posts you got to do. There's worksheets you got to go do if you're going to do it. There's worksheets out here. And again, it's free. I'm doing it to just kind of write up my thoughts around being a systems administrator. And then when I'm done with it, because we're going to finish it right at the end of this year, I'm probably going to turn around and do a either a security one, or just, some of you guys had mentioned just wanting to do a straight engineering one, right? Because like we did our talk in August, all of us came and talked about different parts of engineering, and I did just straight engineering stuff, right? Like I'm mostly just concerned with straight engineering. Hey, real quick, that's kind of interesting. Did Robodom, are you still there? I don't know if you're around still. Might be. I was just wondering if when you comment on YouTube, has it been popping up over here? Because I just noticed that, and that's kind of cool if it is. So I see you, Robodom, but that one over on YouTube, I wonder if that, because it looked like it just got popped up on the screen. That's kind of cool if both of my things, if both of my questions and things that people are talking about are popping up on the screen. Because then even if you're missing it, I think it does. Does it show up for you there? It does look like it does, doesn't it? That's pretty cool. So if any of you are like, oh God, I don't even know what Scott's talking about, or Scott's answering questions, it's popping up there, at least right above my head, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about between the two different chats. Okay. But again, beginner start here. Go find resources that are free. There's a lot. I got all these old. These ones aren't even that old. They're just from May, and they're the absolute beginners hands-on labs. So we just went through the labs, right? Yeah, Robodom, it does look like it's chatting, so that's awesome. And then, if you want to get some certs, good. If you want to go work in projects, we've got a bunch of projects you can do that will bolster your career, hopefully, right? We've got a bunch of projects before we started this class where you could go and just, work on different things, deep dive with monitoring and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of resources. The goal of this group is to take people who are amateurs and hobbyists, which most of us are at least hobbyists in this, and make you pros, right? Show you that you can go do professional work and then eventually retire like Ranger, and Ranger's not even technically a guard dog anymore. I've retired him. He's just a dog chilling now. But I don't blame him. It is 107 in Phoenix right now, so like it's kind of hot for October. So look at Ranger with his. You can see how fat his face is when he puts his. Well, you can probably see how fat my face is when I do that too. But yeah, Ranger. We love Ranger though. We don't make fun of him too much. All right. Wait until the end of our little break here. But in the meanwhile, we'll move this down, and we'll start looking at. This says manage cloud and on-premise hosting. So which cloud? And then you need to know, how do I connect? Right, so that's IAM, identity and access management. Or is it federated access? Somebody can just say, oh yeah, I trust Google, and Google knows it's you, so I'll do, I'm going already, hold on. Yeah, Colchis, there is a logical volume management lab, yeah, yep. It's for this last week, yep, week 3. So, hold on, I was getting too overzealous. I was starting to go, and I need to wait until the break is up, because maybe somebody's out drinking water still, and they're going to come back and be like, oh, this guy already started, what a jerk. So we'll wait a minute, we'll just watch Ranger for another minute. Also, when in Europe, consult your lawyer. Sure. Oh, yeah, I'm sure of that. Because GDPR for everybody, right? I'm not saying anything bad about GDPR. I'm just saying that's a thing in Europe. And if you're going to do business with Europe, that's also a thing. Oh, Ranger, just laying around. Yeah, tomahawks. You gotta start working through, and we have labs that show you how to do a lot of that stuff. I'm working right now. I'm doing like job skills that come from real job boards. Um, but I have a set of labs that are out there, which I think I can just do labs here, and I think that'll do it there. And then I'll have to go throw it over on the. Well, I gotta go throw it separate on the YouTube side. I'm just gonna throw it all there together, but that'll go to both again, I think. But um, I always send that over to the YouTube side. Oh, look at that! That's a big old mess above my head there. Um, but that should be on the YouTube, and then you guys can use those. Fisherman also has some pretty good labs. Well, his labs are more like Linux system administration stuff like this. I think his stuff's really good if you want to kind of make sure that you're ready for like what a day in the life of a Linux administrator might be. You know, fixing systems and stuff. By the way, he's coming to guest speak this Saturday when we do our Linux group. I'm going to have him come and speak to you guys either before or after the class proper. Probably if he shows up at the beginning, I'll just have him talk first, and then I'll go through all the stuff after. So that'll be good. So yeah, we'll get because I want you guys to get real world experience. What are people actually thinking about? Well, I mean, if he wants to go second, he can go second too, but that'll make me keep mine more short. I'm trying to keep them under an hour and a half because there's a lot of things to say, but you can only do so much in a week, right? Like we're doing that. I'm having you guys do labs and worksheets and also do discussion posts. And I get that it's a lot for some people, but it's also like I want to make a change. I want to learn how to do this thing. I got to spend some time learning how to do this thing, right? The course is all free, but I tell you guys, like, I'm not selling easy. I'm selling hard work. Like you have to do this stuff, and it's a lot to do. Yeah. It takes me way less to send out an assignment than it does for you guys to do it, and I get that. But it's also like some people have been really gung ho. What I've seen one or two projects. I was telling you guys this the other day. Some of the guys have done stuff that's so good that I'm like, better than I would have done. Better than I would have done it at all, man. Like people have been like putting stuff up in like people have been running their notes just in like a blog post format, and all their notes are up on a blog post, and I'm like, man, I might need to take that when we're done, and if you give me access to that, that'll be the standard for how I show this to other people in the future. There's some really good like that's my answer key right there. I didn't have an answer key. I just did the labs and I just wrote the worksheets. I didn't go answer it all. I mean, I know I know what most of the answers are, but some of the stuff, you guys get better answers than I even have, But that's the goal of this. It's like it's just to get experience and to understand a thing, to kind of hold it. Like I always tell you guys, like hold it in your hands and kind of see how these things all work. So, all right. So manage cloud and on-prem hosting environments. Which cloud? How do I connect? Typically, there's two ways. So fun thing about the cloud, which you guys may or may not know, the cloud is always API access. You are always accessing the cloud through an API. Even if you're in a console, even if you're using keys through a software development kit and SDK, even if you're in a PowerShell or something like that, you are always using an API. You might not see the API, you might just be calling a command, but that command is then using your keys, your PowerShell or your AWS CLI or Azure CLI, whatever your tools are that you've downloaded and are using. You are always accessing the cloud through an API. For the Prolog certification, can we only get the certification with those 16 weeks, or would we be able to get after 16 weeks? So Cyber Buffalo, I will do something where people can do it after, but you will probably have to do like a significant amount of. So I'm torn on that one because I want people to do the course even when we're done with it, right? I'd want people to come back through and just keep working on the course. I want that course, all those discussions are searchable. So some of you guys, if you were to go to our Discord and search for like SE Linux, you would find so many good, succinct answers around SE Linux, but you would also find links that people found useful and like the really good Rocky. Rocky has really good documentation on how SE Linux works, in case you're wondering. SE Linux. Yeah, there you go. But anyways, so Cyber Buffalo, what I might do is I might offer it. I thought about doing it like once per year, but maybe what we'll do, I have things to think about there for sure. I want to make it fair to everybody, but I also want it to. I want the cert to be like something that's of value to people, like you spent time doing it. But maybe I'll have some kind of makeup thing, or maybe we'll do something later on where we crash it or something. Where because like in my case, this doesn't really help you guys much, but the wife's out of town. In a week she's out of town, so this would probably be next year sometime if the wife's out of town. She's out of town for a week starting next Friday on the 11th. She won't be back till the 21st, so it's like a week and a half. If we were done with the course, I would just do like a Saturday, Sunday, and just do the whole thing, like just back to back, just on a stream. But as I haven't released all the course yet, and that's because I'm building it as we go. I'm building a plank ahead each week. Like, it's pretty bad. But, I mean, I have the outline of everything, right? But I have to fill it in and make it a little more valuable. So this is the longest answer to a simple question ever. But, yeah, there will be a way to do it, but I haven't figured out what's fair yet. And then, by the way, so you guys know, one of our guys has already generated, there's going to be a little QR code on it. And when you give somebody your info, they'll be able to go to it and verify that you actually got the cert. So there won't be any tomfoolery around the cert. It'll only be given to the people that have it. If somebody else goes and makes one and puts their names on it, which you could do, it wouldn't mean anything if anybody validated it. So that's the thing that we're doing. We're just going to have that because I think that's good, because then it's something that's got some value to people. And the people that actually go through the process will feel like they've accomplished something, right? I heard a friend one time, we were talking, and this was right after. I don't like getting political, but if you guys know who Janet Yellen is, she's a American in charge of monetary policy, and like if you ever, if I didn't have an advanced degree in this subject, as a layperson, I would look at her and go and listen to her talk about things and go, that woman doesn't know a fucking thing about what she's talking about. But I mean, if I didn't have an advanced degree in that subject, I would still be like, that's not right. Anyways, where I'm going with that is I told my friend once, because he's getting his PhD in economics, and I said, hey, do you know that when she's done with her running monetary policy, she can go to any of like the colleges that you and I could go and get an advanced degree like us given to her like that? And he said something that was really interesting to me. He said, you honor the degree doesn't honor you. Or you honor the award or the certificate doesn't honor you. So that's also been my thing too. Like, but anyways, the way he put it was really well done. Because again, it's true. Like, she can have the degree. She doesn't fucking know anything. If you want to look up somebody who doesn't know anything, go look up Janet Yellen. That woman has no idea what she's doing. She's what we call a post turtle. Do you guys know what a post turtle is? Post turtle is somebody like okay, if you saw a post in the middle of a field, like on a fence, and then a turtle was sitting up on top of it, that turtle doesn't know how he got there. He doesn't know how he's going to get down. He doesn't know what he's doing. That's what she is. And look, I try not to get too political, but feel free to look that person up. That person is probably one of the most inept human beings I've ever seen talk or whatever. Post turtle. Yeah, how did this thing get up here? Again, I try not to get too political, but like I do the same thing with my college students. I'm like, I'm not going to get political, but maybe later on in your career, you're going to change the way you think about certain things, right? All right, this says endless security improvements. I actually like that, right? Security is a never-ending process. So security is a never-ending process. It's never done. That's true. Security is always going to be going, so that's good. So what might they mean on endless security improvements? They probably mean continually hardening the baseline, you know, and the baseline could be network. It could be network. It could be systems. What we call a golden image, right? That's a thing in systems, golden image or hardened image. And let me pull up my real quick here. Let me go pull something up for you guys. Have any of you guys ever seen? I got to go pop over here for 1 second. Hold on. I need to go open up something. It's way down in my downloads. This is free, by the way. This is a free tool I'm about to pull up. But have you guys all seen when we go look at the Stig viewer? I got to make sure that I don't have, as I pull this up, hold on, I got to make sure I don't have these other things in here. Okay, good. They're all closed down. So I'll pull this over here for you. The Stig viewer, as best I know, doesn't have a dark mode, so there you go. You get to look at it in light mode. We can check. Does he have? Oh, he does have a dark theme. That looks like crap. I mean, that's probably one of the worst things I've ever looked at, but God, that's awful. All right, I guess that's darker for some of you, but so the question would be, you know, right here, Systems Golden Image, how would I keep improving that? And maybe it's up the Stig score. And how do you up the Stig score? Well, you go through. That is one of the worst dark themes I've ever seen. To be fair, I've never turned on the dark theme on this, but that dark theme looks like it's from 1997. This looks like it's like in a Windows something. But anyways, so let's just go back to light theme. Let's just accept that it's going to burn everybody's eyes out. I apologize for nothing. It's pretty awful. That was one of the worst dark themes I've ever seen. Yeah. It's like if I had a piece of paper in front of my face and then I had like one of those really bright lights behind it and it was still burning through. Yeah. Well, it's free and it's from the government. So there you go. But maybe one of our things, let me show you guys something. If I were to generate a checklist from this, I'm going to generate a checklist from the Mark Stigs. And now I've got this checklist and I go look and my Stig score is 0. Looks like a CDE application. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Seven over on the YouTube side. Guys, I'm actually really happy that the chat integration posts everything up here. So as you guys chat on either side, it comes up. Yeah. Kithrill's right. Yeah, when you look at this in dark mode, it's a high contrast. Look at that. It's not even trying to be real dark mode. It's like, I would do dark mode, but I am tired. Just go without me. I'm tired. It's like the worst dark mode. Hold on. The cat views. Nothing. Okay. So where I'm going with this, though, is let's just go back to bright mode. Sorry, guys. Let's say that you then looked at this Stig and you had this checklist and you were going to compare it to your system. This is definitely a government thing. By the way, this is free on the government site. So the Stig viewer is free. All the Stigs that you could download and run are free. Yeah, the poor UI intern that had to write this. Fair. But we come back over here, and I only have ones that I've been using lately, but I can download the 20. I have some of these other ones for some systems, and I have 2 labs up that show you how to run a Stig scanner against either Ubuntu or a website. And I've showed you guys how to do that in Killer Coda, right? So I have these 2 labs over here in Killer Coda. So if you're like, hey, Scott, I want to know more about this, but I don't want to listen to you for 1 more second, then you would come here. I'll link these labs to you guys here. Hold on. And the last 2 labs I made as I kind of finished up the little book I have is an OS Stig report of a server with the SCC tool. And I walk you through how to do that. So I'll link this here for you guys that want it. And then also the other one, it just walks you through how to scan like a system, right? Okay. So where were we at here? Oh, back to this guy. So anyways, let's say you scan it and you've got a really low score. You've got like maybe you know you need to be up in, well, look, if you're at 0, everything you do is only going to be better. But let's go here and let's say that you really want to improve like your network. So you look for your IPv4, and here are all the ones that are pretty quick to do with IPv4, specifically, around the net IPv4 sysctl settings. So I can go set these settings. I can check them here. There's always a check text and then a fix text. And to fix it, all I've got to do is add into the file etc sysctl .d, some file in there for, like, let's say I just made a net IPv4 file in there, and I add this value, and then I rerun sysctl --system, it'll reread that etc sysctl.d directory, and it'll get there. Is there something similar for EU, or is it a universal? Well, no. So the DISA STIGs are just the Secure Technical Implementation Guidelines. They tie back to the reference of NIST standards. So the NIST 800-53 CM6B. And what you're doing is you're applying. So NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. No, so Tomahawks, the CIS benchmarks are a little different. I used to run the CIS benchmarks, so I used to have to carve up all my partitions and stuff. Some of these map pretty closely to the NIST or to the CIS benchmark standards as well. So, but no, you can't load CIS benchmarks directly into this, no. But it is really nice for generating reports and then seeing scores of your systems. And then, I can come over here and I can look and I can see once I start knocking some of these off. So let me go here and go to, so there's my filter panel and then STIGs. So I come here and I say, okay, well, this one, you know what? I did a finding, I did a check, and finding, this is why we use scanning tools, so it generates this for us. Finding was that the system passed, and then I would put the exact thing I saw that passed, right? System sysctl or sysctl-a to show all showed me that, and maybe I did a grep-i for syn cookies, right? And then that would be good, and then I could right click on this and say this is not a finding because it's good. Now, would you, and then by the way, look, I get good there, and I get a little tiny bit of score. And you say, well, how much score do you want? Minimum score for connecting to government systems tends to be 90. And none of your cat ones can be ignored. So let's pull this filter off. I'm going to remove all filters. Here's all my cat 1s, here's all my cat 2s, and here's all my cat 3s. So cat 1s have to be remediated or dispositioned in some way before you go on to a government system. Must be a vendor-supported release. Well, RHEL 9 is, maybe I'm using, because I use these same STIGs against Rocky Linux, and RHEL 9 is not actually the Rocky standard, so I'm never going to get this. So I would have to say something like this. This fails this check, right? And then I'd have to come down here and say this is not a finding because we're using Rocky Linux. Rocky Linux is supported by CIQ, reported by CIQ, and recognized by the government as a RHEL compatible system, right? So now I can say that, and then I can right click this and say not a finding. Now, sometimes things can be not applicable. There's another category here of not applicable, but the problem with not applicable is you cannot say something is not applicable unless down here the words not applicable appear. So if I come here and it says this is not applicable if you're in a certain version of Red Hat or something, then I can get away with saying not applicable. But what happens with not applicable is it changes the overall score. So if you were doing 100% of 462, because that's what the default was, 462, when you fix any of these, I hope this makes sense what I'm about to say. When you fix any of these, you're affecting the numerator above the denominator. So you're inching closer to 100% because you're making the ones that are available to be either a finding or not a finding, or in this case not reviewed, they are just sitting there as zeros over a denominator of 462. But when you do a not applicable, you take 462 down to 461. You're changing the bottom number of what's actually applicable against the system, and you might end up with, out of these 462, only 450 fall into applicable, and then those are either open or not a finding or not reviewed, but you have to review them, so you can't leave them in not reviewed. Look, some of this, it's really funny. Like, everybody says they want to do cybersecurity, but not a lot of people mean this. What they mean is I want to be Hackermans and go like this and do Linux, but Nobody can admit that to themselves, so they then everybody just tells you they want to be a pen tester and stuff. And DoD doesn't supply any sort of automation. Yeah, they do, Dipicate. Yeah, they do. And then there's the OpenSCAP scanner and the OpenSCAP remediation. So yeah, there's a tremendous amount of remediation that you can do with Ansible and stuff. In fact, I have Ansible playbooks that do all of this for you. But here's the problem. This is something I always ask you guys, and I always make this statement here. Let me just go right here. I'm going to say something here, and some people might not agree with it, but it's true. Right here. Security is the enemy of productivity. Now, this is being said by somebody who's done security his whole career, but it's true. Security slows you down. But that being said, the reason I brought that up as an overarching question is this. When you look at all this and you say, well, there's 462 known things, and we can do it with Ansible, why doesn't it just come out of the box like that? Why if all these settings are the correct secure technical implementation guidelines, and these would lock a box down to a really hard and nice state, why don't I just ship all Rocky Linux with those 462 turned on? I want you guys to think about this for a second. Why aren't all of them turned on? Well, let's go check. I'll give you one example of why. Oh, God. Oh. Password. All these are password. And then let's go look at some of the password ones real quick. All right, that's some password bullshit with some other stuff. That's some password stuff. Nope, not the ones I want. Not the ones I need. Minimum. I might need to filter also by the word minimum. Hold on, I'm going to find them. And then when I find them, you guys will see what I'm about to tell you. None of these, none of these, none of these, none of these. Here we go. All right. Let's go to right here. Password must be changed every 60 days. All right, most of you don't want to do that. Password lifetime restriction of 60-day maximum. That's the longest password can go. Okay, so that's that one. Inactive, you got to inactive users if they're not being used. If you are denied 3 times, you got to be locked out until somebody allows you in. Most people don't want to do that. Fat finger it twice and then you mess up the 3rd time, you're out. You're never getting back in. You got to go set stuff. Fail interval. No, none of these. Hold on, none of these are what I want. I really want to show you guys this one's annoying, the UID of 0, but where that? All right, you got to make sure that abnormal password attempts, so that's not it. Null awk, those are just some settings. I'm trying to find. They're just settings. Password quality. Okay, complexity rules has to be set in PAM, so we're about to get to the password rules. But again, every 60 days you got to change your password, and we got to enforce it in the system. All right, no, that's an algorithm thing. That's fine. That's fine. We got to enforce complexity even on root. That's fine. L credit. So, you must have at least 1 lowercase character. All right, so now here we go. Right, here we go. One lowercase character. You must have at least 1 numeric character. Okay, most of us have played that password game. We know we can do that. Okay, you must have 24 hours at the minimum password lifetime. So you can't change your password within 24 hours. If you forgot it between this morning and when you came back from lunch, can't do that. Got to keep that password. Can't change it. Hold on. Yeah, that's the same one. Hold on, I'm just adding here on my fingers. Minimum is 15 characters. Oh, that's a fun one. All right, 15 characters. And then hold on, I'm going to get to the one that really breaks it. You must have at least 1 special character. So now I've got 6 fingers over here. Hold on, so I'm at 6 fingers. Hold on. Must force it. Okay. Oh, can't have dictionary words, obviously. At least 1 uppercase. I thought we had that one, but maybe we didn't yet. Okay, so that's up to that. Gotta force it. Max class repeat. Some of you have never seen this because you've never done government shit. The max class repeat is set to 4, meaning I can't type in Scott is, and Scott's all lowercase, SCOTT. Once I get to that 4th character that's lowercase, it's broken. It doesn't work anymore. Hey, how's it going, Rob? We are talking security a little bit, and I'm explaining why what I was talking about was if you have 462 rules in a STIG, what happens is you can't just say turn on all 462 of those rules on an operating system because nobody would use your operating system. So what we did was we went down into the system here and we started counting up. You know, I have to have at least an upper, a lower character. So here's uppercase, lowercase, numeric, and special, and that sounds okay. And then you come down here and you go, okay, we're enforcing it. You can't change it, but every 24 hours, even if you forgot it. So that's a thing. You can't have no password. You have to have a password. The minimum is 15 characters. It's got to be 15 characters, guys. And then, hold on. This is the one. We were just on the one where this one really makes it annoying. Is right here. Max of a class that can be after it is another one. So if I wanted to do, let's say I wanted to do RWX Rob is so great. And I wanted to do RWX capital and then R capital and Rob. And then, nope, failed. Because RWX and then R, those four are in the same class of upper characters. So you have to stop after the third one. So when you're doing your passwords, now you've got to be consciously thinking, it's not just you can't passphrase this. So if you guys are used to doing like, hey, I'll do I don't mind 15 characters. I'll do a 24 character pass. No, you won't, because you better be changing your upper and lowercase characters as you go, or a special character or a numeric. It's a effing nightmare. So when we know all the security standards. Security standards are easy to automate. We have all this stuff in Ansible. You could push this to a box. The box would be completely unusable for most people. So that's why a lot of times we'll take STIG exceptions and we can't get our STIG score all the way to 100. We tend to try to get it up into the 90s. And we figure out what we're not going to accept and what we're going to fight with security about. But it's a process. And it goes back to, we were looking at these are actual job things from job boards that people had posted. And I said security is the enemy of productivity, only in that a completely secure system is unusable by the average person. So there you go. And then Raiders, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. We were doing networking earlier. We were, chopping some networks up. We were doing all kinds of stuff, right? And I'm almost done because the wife's coming home. And then we got date night. And we were just talking about how to up your skills. So this is up in my Discord. And these are actual job board requirements that come from real jobs that people have found out there. And we just went through and started answering for ourselves and finding words and terms that we thought we needed to study and know about to be able to answer questions around that in an interview. So that was kind of what we were doing. And these are all up in the Discord already, except for the ones that we started doing today, which we started right here today. So these ones all add up later. So you use a password manager, yeah, and you probably have to have it generate some of them for you too, because it's really insane what the government asks for in some of them. But at least they're so complex that you couldn't put them on a little sticky note even if you wanted to, which you're not supposed to do that. Don't put things on a Post-it note and put it on your monitor. That's a bad thing. That's no good. All right. So, what are we doing? So we just got raided, so hopefully this isn't too boring for you guys. We were going over all the things that you need to kind of look at or understand or walk through. We were talking about Terraform. We were checking out my dog Ranger, seeing how he's doing. He's tired. He's old. Laying around. It's 73 degrees downstairs. It's 106 outside right now in Phoenix, but it's 73 for him down there. But these are actual jobs that people have. Look, down this next one must be SpaceX, because work closely with other SpaceX engineers to gather requirements, research, evaluate, design, plan, deploy, and support Linux-based open source software platforms and related tech. So somebody in our work this was a couple weeks ago, somebody wanted to work for SpaceX, right? Exercise a high degree of responsibility in a process. They found a job, wherever they found it, for one of these types of tasks, right? Oops, let me do that. So, and I've just been adding to these as we go. I just keep kind of adding more and more. Improve automation tools, right? What are our automation tools? We need to understand Bash and probably understand either something like Python or Perl. The reason, I'll get back to that here in a second, or Ansible. Most of you guys that know me know that I cut my teeth on Perl. Perl is what I did system administration for all the way from the beginning of my career to 2016. And I stopped using it because me and this guy Jason Brown worked together, and me and Jason wrote a lot of stuff in Perl, but none of our team did. So and he and I were like the two seniors, and then we had some mid level, and then a bunch of, not a bunch, but probably like 3 or 4 juniors. And we were like, well, we actually sat down and talked about it one day. We're like, well, are we going to still keep writing stuff in Perl, or are we going to start moving all of our scripts down into Bash, which has been, around forever, or are we going to start moving all of our new stuff into Ansible? And actually, it was my brother was a big push on us going to Ansible in probably like 2017. So we started doing all Ansible in our shop. So we did all Ansible everywhere. Yeah, Colchis, everything for Perl is completely free online. You can find every book out there. There's sites that host it for free. I'm not telling you to go pirate it. I'm telling you there's stuff out there. So if you wanted to get into Perl, you could. But I mean, again, like Perl's still kicking out there, but I wouldn't tell a new systems administrator to learn it. I would tell them to learn Python first. Well before, because Python's still being used in all kinds of other contexts as well. Bash has been around my whole career, and Bash isn't, I don't think, going anywhere because it's just going to be around. But Ansible is like, hey, I'm the future, old man. Like it's the best. It's a framework around how we connect to things and do things, so we don't have to do, you guys have seen me when I connect to a server and I just make a couple of entries and then I just do like a bash script across it. That's fine, you can loop like that, but you have no control over exit codes. You have no control over what's going on in that loop besides it just going top down sequential start to end. Ansible, we have way more control. We have like this whole scaffolding that we can use for how we want to make our systems communicate. So it's a really great tool. And I always joke around about the cult of Ansible, but we do have on Killer Coda, we do have a bunch of labs that walk you through how to do Ansible, right? Actually, we're right here. We're right on the front page, Ansible labs. Bunch of labs. And they start you off at nothing, and they get you down to, I think, at least being able to run it and entertain the thought of using it, right? Proof scripting, that's all the as above, right? But you have to be motivated to do this, right? If everything's working, you might think, oh, I don't need to work on those scripts. No, you still got to get over there. Still got to go look at that stuff. And then Rob dropped off, but I don't know, Rob, if you're still around. What were you guys working on? I actually was in your stream earlier, Rob, but I don't know what you were working on. I saw something about K8s earlier, but I was there. I think you were doing yoga earlier today. Maybe that was a different stream. So, all right. Provide technical support as needed. We talked about that earlier. That's know your customer. Who do we work for, and what are our KPI? What are our key performance indicators? Look, in some have you guys ever like gotten anybody ever here like went take your vehicle down or something, and you have to do like a survey, and they tell you at the end of the survey, they're like, look, man, if you're not gonna at least give us a 9 or a 10, just don't do the survey, because anything less than like a 7 or less, or sorry, an 8 or less, 9 or 10 are the only things that are good. Anything less means you wouldn't recommend this. So we don't, I mean, you might as well just be saying, I don't want to and here's the thing, because that's how a lot of those, it's funny, they do this big quantitative thing and then they just turn it into a binary yes or no at some point. Well, are the surveys what matter, or are the ticket in queue what matter? And you say like, well, because here's the thing, if the tickets in queue are what matters, it behooves me to close tickets down without waiting for, whoever to come back. I fixed your email, I fixed your login to to a server because for some reason on that server you were set to bash no, to Etsy no login, or Etsy no login. You can touch Etsy no login, but no, it's you were set to no shell. You had no shell inside of Etsy Pass WD. And what would happen then is I just fix it and then I send it over the wall and I go, it's done, and I close it without waiting to make sure that you're good. And then I find out that you actually had a different problem because we were using Etsy security limits.conf, or not even limits.conf, access.conf. And in access.conf, I was blocking a group that you're in before I was allowing something else that we had put you in. And that kind of stuff can happen. So what if the survey doesn't come back very good because I'm just disregarding what my users are actually telling me and not waiting until they're done? But if I had just waited and said, oh, shoot, you know what? I'm sorry. I did mess that up. And then I fix it for them. I get a lot better survey answers. So, but what if my boss just cares if tickets are out of the queue? He's like, hey, we're back up over 15 tickets in the queue. That's going to alert management if there's 15 untouched tickets in the queue at the end of any day. And you're like, oh, I know. So then you just go touch all the tickets, but you just put them in waiting on customer or something. That may make your numbers look good, but that's you're actually breaking the process that you're trying to use for quality improvement. Who here, have any of you guys, this one bugs me a lot. But sometimes, and you can always tell when like a fast food place has like the managers involved and they're trying to do whatever, they'll come out and there'll be nobody behind you, right? Like you're there at like 10 a.m. No, I know I go to the food too much, but you're sitting there and there's nobody behind you. And they're like, hey, the whatever's cooking, could you just drive forward and come around and then we'll bring it out to you? Well, they're doing that because they're trying to get cars through and they can close the order. Once the car drives off the plate or whatever they got there to measure, once the car leaves, they can say the order's done and then they can just bring it out to you. But the order didn't take 3 minutes to do. The order took 7 minutes. So they're playing with their numbers for whatever reason. It looks better or it's whatever. But yeah, and I'm not telling you that the low-end worker is wrong for doing that because in some cases maybe that's easier for them. But I am telling you that from a process improvement standpoint, you're changing the baseline or whatever improvement they're trying to figure out. So yeah, people I got told to move the other day and I was like, there's nobody, whatever. I don't argue with people. I just go because I will never argue with anybody that's got food, right? Like I'm not gonna risk getting food spit in. So I'm just like, yep, I'll go around. Yep. Go around, wait for my little, what were they making me? I think it was like mozzarella sticks over at Burger King or something. I don't know. But it was something tasty, whatever it was. And oh yeah, because they were dropping the chicken nuggets that I got too. All right. We're done. Hey, Monkey Man, how's it going? We're probably gonna raid out here in a few. The wife's got to be home soon. She got off work at 4. She said she's just getting to Costco. Keep streaming until I get home. Okay, so she's got a little bit of time. I got a little bit of time to talk to you guys still. So, Ranger, is that bed tasty? My dog, man. My dog. He eats plenty, guys. You would think that he's like a prisoner down there, like not getting enough food because he's sitting there licking his bed. But I'll go give him some begging treats. The little they look like bacon strips. He loves those things. But I'll go give him that here in a little bit. All right. So more job skills. Let's go review some of the ones that we've had already. Let's go start at the top here. Somebody said install, configure, and maintain Linux operating systems, software applications. I'm going to add to this a little bit. Installing can be apt, DNF, Yum, but Yum is kind of going away in favor of DNF. We can do build from source, right? So that kind of thing happens. Updating is the same way. DNF, Yum, build from source. Look at that dog. What's he doing? And then installing servers. So you need to have a build process. And your build process may be for your first build. Maybe you ISO and then use an ISO to connect to maybe a virtual drive in iDRAC or something like that. And if you say, Scott, I don't know what a virtual drive is or an iDRAC or an ISO. And I say, well, those are good things to put in your notebook then and go read about a little bit, right? Because there's a lot of things. Also, if it's 5:20 p.m. here in Phoenix and the sun is coming in that window, can anybody here tell me the front-facing direction of my house? This is the back of the house. This is the back of the house. So does anybody know what the front of my house faces? Can anybody here figure that out? A little bit of stuff. Some of our guys, by the way, some of our guys in our Discord, when you post a picture, my house definitely faces east. That is true. This is west. This is the west side, but this is the back of the house. So my house faces east. Yeah. So yeah, Ranger probably turned around. I don't know why he turned around though, because the sun shouldn't have been bugging him. But now he's facing the way the sun's actually setting to the west. And then we got a school directly behind us too. So, but there's guys in our Discord. Some of you guys don't know this, but I'm going to tell you if you haven't been in our Discord. If you post a picture of something, they go gather all the intel that they can, all the open intel that they can find off of that picture, and some of our guys will tell you, like the one time, one of our guys posted a street corner that he was at in New York, and the other guy came back with, "It's right there, isn't it?" And there's tools that make that easier nowadays, but I know guys that did that for the military, so. Some of the guys in our Discord did that for the military. So yeah. They know it's fast too. They do it fast because it's like a game to them. It's like that game that I've seen streamers play where they like try to figure out where a road is or something like that. Well, they already have gathered intel on you because they know who you are probably if they've been around for a while. But yeah, some of the guys that's what they like to do. Just gather intel on people. They're not doing anything with it. Yeah, GeoGuessr, that's what it's called. Yep. So build process, typically it's something like this. And then once we've got a net boot, so after one build, net boot or iPXE of a working image, right? And then now all nodes can boot from that image or set of images, right? So you look at that and you go, well, Scott, what does that mean? Well, so in our home lab here, right, we've got these servers and all the Rocky boxes that you guys are using for the labs. Let's see if any of the Rocky boxes are down. I know people have been abusing them. But let's go look at, let's go hop in one real quick. Hold on. So let's just jump over here and then SSH like Rocky 7. Let's see. How long has Rocky 7 been up? Who's in there? Nobody's in there. So we'll just reboot Rocky 7, and then we'll go watch it at the console. This is a very important thing when you're building servers. Imagery analysis for intelligence as well. Yeah, I used to do downstream of satellite, and then I would watch the image packages that would be generated. It's tremendous, the capability. I did that stuff, yeah, over 15 years ago. Well, I did it up until about 12 years ago, but yeah, the imagery stuff that we could do back then for like change detection and images and stuff was wild. And now there's just libraries out there that everybody can use to do change detection and determine, it's change detection in one area, but it's also a cat, so now I alert or whatever. And there's a bunch of tools. There's tools that are free that'll do all that stuff for you nowadays too. But watch this. This server's booting, but he doesn't know who he is, so the werewolf server that's managing all of this is telling it, hey, you're Rocky 7, and then it downloads the right image. It does, so it downloads the right container image, and it gets the kernel, and it's in it RAMFS. It boots up, it goes to TempFS, it runs on TempFS, and then it pulls down all the other information it needs as overlays. So we can configure all of these different nodes in this cluster off of one image, which is actually what we did in this system. And that's kind of a valuable thing. I don't know why Ranger's getting so antsy. He's like moving around a lot. But all the nodes can be set to boot from that image or set of images, and then it becomes easier. And then, okay, so in our build process, we need to make a decision early on. Is it going to be stateful or stateless? And stateful is sometimes called a fat image, and stateless is sometimes a thin, or this is sometimes called network provisioned. And it's interesting that stateful will, if you install something on stateful, right, it is not, stateless is not, it is not ever immutable, or it does not mean immutable. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you have a stateful set of nodes over here, you got 10 nodes over here and 10 nodes over here. Stateful, stateless. If you take the stateful nodes and you add a web server, you do a DNF install Apache on them, what will happen is when that server gets turned off, those 10 servers get turned off, and they come back up, they will still have the web server on them. Because they're stateful nodes. They go down, they boot off of their disks. These nodes over here, if you were to, for the rest of the year, run them, but you installed a web server on them, they would be fine. The immutable means I couldn't do that. I couldn't change what's there. But I can install things to memory. I can install things on that TempFS system. But then when those go down, the stateless nodes go down on January 1st and come back up, they do not have web servers on them anymore. Even if they've been running with web servers for the last 4 months, they will no longer have the changes that you made to them because all the changes are stateless. It's like a trap door. If I had a little trap door here and then this thing walked onto it and I went like that, it would disappear. And then when the trap door came back up, nothing would be there. So stateless versus stateful, very important for you to understand as you make design decisions around clusters. And I'm working with a whole bunch of stateless images. Oh, this came up the other day. I actually had to say something in a meeting. I normally don't try to say things in meetings until somebody says something like this. This was said in a meeting. I'm not going to tell you who it was or where it was for or any of that stuff. I'm not even going to tell you if it was for my college that I teach at or my company that I work for. I can't even tell you all that. I'm just going to tell you I was in a meeting the other day. And there was discussions around making some of our stateless nodes, all of our nodes in this one cluster were stateless. And they said, we're going to turn some of them stateful. And the reason is so that we need Tenable and who was the other one? McAfee. I don't know what McAfee's thing is called. To auto update. Who remembers an auto update about a month, 2 months ago maybe, that took down over 1 billion systems worldwide? Does anybody remember that? Who was that? Does anybody know what company that was? I'm surprised they still exist. I don't think they should exist anymore. Who was it that took down over 1 billion servers? Yeah, they took over 1 billion servers offline around the world. I don't know if you guys know that. CloudStrike, yeah, that's a good one. That's exactly right. Hold on. I told those guys in this meeting, and this is me as an engineer for many, many years, why the fuck would we give anybody else permission to update our shit off of our update time? Like, I will update stuff when I am ready, and when we will move the system when we have accepted the risks. Who the F wants to let some other company, especially when it just happened with CrowdStrike? Anybody know the date that happened? I don't know what the date was. Who would want to allow them still to reach into your systems and update their shit on your systems on their timetable? Nope. That shit ain't happening. Nope. We'll go ahead and test in dev and move up through the things and then we'll go forward. Well, maybe they'll come back. Who knows? I'm surprised that they still exist. I think that they should fold and go under. I don't think that's acceptable. I mean, if you took 1 billion servers offline, there had to be hospitals worldwide. There had to be all kinds of things that went down. And there definitely were. I knew people personally who, I'm in the Linux space. I knew people all over the Phoenix area that were going and doing it. But anyways, the point is, who would want to allow, and I'm not saying Tenable or McAfee aren't, let's say you're the most reasonable and responsible person on planet Earth. You're Mr. Responsibility, Mr. or Mrs. Responsibility. I am still not going to let you sit here and hold a gun to my head while I talk. It's not fucking happening. You say, but it's empty. It's open. Look, here's the six wheels of the revolver. They're open, and I'm just going to lay this right here on your head while you talk. I'd be like, no, I don't care. I understand firearms operation, right? I grew up my whole life shooting, went in the infantry. I understand well. You're still not pointing that thing at me. And that's exactly what that feels like. It's somebody else that has control of your release cycle, and it doesn't make any sense. We do all this stuff to protect our build and our code pipelines and our CI/CD pipelines and stuff, but then over here in prod, somebody can go boop and do whatever the hell they want whenever they want. That doesn't make any sense. And I couldn't believe in this meeting the other day that we were talking about it. I was like, I felt like I almost wanted to say, am I in Bizarro World right now? Am I like in the Twilight Zone? Am I being punked? Like, what the hell is happening that we're still talking about this? It was proved to literally the whole earth that is a bad model. and people are still doing it. I don't know, Nezor, I don't know why people use them, and I don't know why people still use SolarWinds. In fact, I'd be willing to bet SolarWinds still has the same permissions for people that they had when they were compromised in like 2021. Go look up what happened with SolarWinds. People got into government systems in the U.S. because SolarWinds got compromised, and everybody else underneath them was just like, it's SolarWinds. SolarWinds, you know, they were basically wearing SolarWinds coat and hat, and they were just allowed in to the underbelly of a bunch of companies, you know, a bunch of systems. And then you might say, well, wouldn't Zero Trust fix that? Zero Trust would fix that problem for the most part. But Zero Trust, if somebody was trusting that, they'd still have access to things they shouldn't have. It's amazing to me that we were still having the discussion. I was like, these people, hold on. I was like, they just kicked back some of my security stigs for like my wording being bad on why Grubby isn't used in stateless nodes. They just kicked that back. But they're just gonna allow anybody rootin' and tootin' and shooting like a fucking cartoon character to just come in and hit any button they like. Oh. So painful. All right. I'm just kidding, but I don't care that much. But the wife got there at 4:54. She can't be still at Costco, can she? She's got to be almost done over at Costco. Let me text her. Almost done. By the way, guys, something happened last week that I was actually super happy about. After we got done with the Linux group, a bunch of people hopped down into one of the lower channels and they worked on the labs and stuff. And then I think they met a couple more times. So there was like groups of like eight to maybe like 10 people at any given time down in our Discord just working on stuff. That's like the goal, man. Like I tell you guys all the time, this isn't like the Scott show. I'm just here to tell you guys that there is a Linux group that exists, and you guys can go and hang out there if you want and work on stuff. And yeah, people were working on stuff, and I was just like, that's really cool. Like that's the goal of all this. And until Discord charges us anything, we're gonna keep it completely free. And we're almost at 3,000 people, man. We're just under 3,000 right now. Yeah, it's the Ranger show. Yeah. Actually, there's some other good-looking dogs in there too. Like people, we have a pets channel. People post their pets and stuff. Yeah, DBW. That's 100% for sure. It's like you can make a mistake, but then how do you respond to the mistake? How do you rise back up from that incident? If you just dust yourself off and keep walking down the road, and don't go looking around for like whatever fell on your head or whatever, like I mean, how like. We used to call them after action reviews in the military, and then we called them post mortems in the project management space. But the idea that when we're done with something, the knowledge and the lessons learned come back to the community. Because I tell people all the time, engineering is a lot about the thing that you build. That's a big part of engineering. But the value to the company is to be able to build that again. If you build like really nice pristine engines, right? You build like rockets for SpaceX to fire or NASA to fire, but you can't rebuild that rocket ever again, and you don't document it. You build a really nice different rocket, sure, but you don't document it as you go, and nobody else can come along and ever build one again. That's all wasted engineering hours. But hours where you actually build on and keep working through, and then you have a documented process to get back to like a working system again, or a brand new, because at some point you're going to have to go from RHEL 7. RHEL 7's end of life, right? So you're going to have to go to RHEL 9 or Rocky 9 or whatever eventually. So you have to go back through this process of building a new system, and it's easier to do if you have something that'll get you 90% of the way. That is true. A lot of people do look at that as job security. That's 100% true. And it's kind of sad that it's like that. Then we talked about monitoring system performance and troubleshoot issues related to server hardware, operating systems, and software. And then these are what are called the big four: CPU, memory, disk, and network. And our goal is to keep our servers within reasonable ranges of CPU, memory, disk, and network. And we use a model called the use model, which is utilization, saturation, and errors. And it looks like this. Right here. That's what the model looks like. Hold on, I want to make this a little smaller. This is what that model looks like. Oh, by the way, when did my text break? sometime in the last little bit, my subtitles broke. So I apologize for that, guys. But utilization is always 0 to 100%. Saturation is we start to queue, and then errors are as timeouts are hit on that kind of stuff. Liberty Linux. That's funny. Okay. I definitely have to get off of here soon. The wife's definitely got to be close to home. Did she tell me how far she is? Somebody messaged me. That's funny. Probably somebody watching on YouTube here that knows me. Somebody had texted me or whatever. So, okay. But I didn't use the word heap, so maybe he was just messing with me. It's funny. I know him from jiu-jitsu, but he also does tech stuff. So then he mentioned heap, and then heap is a technical term, but it's going to go down a Brazilian jiu-jitsu thing if I do this, but in Brazilian jiu-jitsu there's a thing called reaping the knee, and reaping the knee is very bad if you don't know why and how, and especially for somebody that doesn't know how to escape it. And but Brazilians don't say the R. They say it as H sound. So heap the knee. So he's making a joke about computers with heaps, right? Memory heap stacks versus heaping a knee. I don't know. I have to read what he said, but he may be on YouTube, so he may have been watching that. And I don't think I said that though, but maybe. All right. This is a use method. This is all up in the Discord as well, and this is how you look at the big four. So CPU, memory, disk, and network. Utilization, saturation, and errors. And these are all, for the most part, these are all systat, SYSSTAT, systat type things. So there you go. Okay. So, yeah, observability things that you want to know. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. One thing I was going to show maybe, this kind of goes into, there was a thing here. Where was it? Hold on. We got to go find it. It was here. And we were talking about, I think it was down here. They were talking about, this was for the, hold on, let me show you guys something. In one of these, one of the guys wanted to go work at SpaceX. So he gave us this one. And this one said, work closely with other SpaceX engineers to gather requirements, research, evaluate, design, plan, deploy, and support Linux-based open source platforms and related technologies. So you need to be able to do those things. So when I do my testing methodology is a subset of the things that they're talking about here, but I can still talk to this a little bit here. When I do my testing outline, I always ask these things. These are my things. You'll find anytime I pull up anything that's going to evaluate something, I use this testing outline. What's the purpose? Give me a description. What's the scope? So what's in scope? And then if I'm going to determine what's in scope, I'm also going to say what's out of scope. But out of scope is always within reason. It's not like, okay, the purpose of this test is to find a new systems engineer. The scope will be, we are just doing the technical part. Out of scope will be things like, we're not doing personality. I don't care about their personality. I just care about the technical part, right? That's what's in scope. But out of scope won't be, and I'll also, figure out the flight trajectory of Mars when it's going to come near Earth again. That's not going to be something I'm going to be doing here. But that's so out of scope as to not even be mentioned. So when you say in scope and out of scope, you don't have to spend like 3 weeks writing all your out of scope stuff. Hold on one second, Ladybug. I'll answer that question. Methodology is how are we going to do it to make it objective, and then what's our control. So I'll show you guys an example of this here in a second. Ladybug, we start week 4 tomorrow. The Discord has all the materials you would need, and I have been encouraging people to just go get in it and start going. I think you can catch up. Lab environments. Down here, this is all the materials you would need to start on week 1, so you'd be a few weeks behind. We have stuff on YouTube that you can go. I have all the, it's called like a playlist, and I have units 1, 2, and 3, which is much more succinct than when we sat in class. In class, I talked for like an hour and a half both times, or all 3 times so far. On the recording, oh, by the way, if you can't find the recordings, they're right here. Here's the 16-week course right here, and the first 3 are up there. Now, that being said, yeah, I was like, it's better to come, I think, to the group because I'm much more candid. I'm trying to be like, I don't want to say more precise. It's just if my name's on it and something's going to be out there for everybody forever, I want it to kind of be good. So these are like, I'm trying to be a lot more. But we did record these live on Twitch and YouTube, so people were able to talk to me and stuff. So I was answering questions still. But then you can come in here and just find your discussion posts and answer. Look, somebody just responded about Unit 2, even though we're in 3, and I'm fine with that, right? Then there's worksheets that you got to go through, and then there's also labs. You do not need to buy the book. Look, guys, there's a book. The book is for the hands-on stuff. You do not need the book for the lab, for the Linux Systems Administration. If you want to buy the book is done for the most part. I don't think I'm really updating the book anymore, but that's on LeanPub, and the book goes over these labs here. Oh, where's the labs? Hold on. Oh, shoot, I just messed my whole screen up. Give me a second. These labs on Killer Coda, it goes through all the Linux ones and all the Ansible ones. Yeah. Look, the book, hopefully, I think the book is good, but the book is designed to take you through these labs. Yeah, Enzo Bear, we're going to do the worksheets at the end, because what I found out was when I only expected 40 people to do the class, that was one thing, but when we got to 182 saying they were doing it, my inbox was just full. I couldn't even go through. Like, my inbox had so much crap. But Ansible labs and Linux labs, and when you do these labs, they make you think about stuff, but they don't really, like, dig deeper, and that's what the book is about. The book is all these labs, and you go do them, spend probably, if I had to guess the first time, maybe close to like 60 hours doing all of our labs, and then writing out your thoughts and going and doing some extra exercises and stuff. So please do not buy the book unless you're interested in just doing that stuff. The Linux Systems Administration course that we're running for free on Discord is designed to, how to put it, it's more like the book is like individual tasks and stuff that you just have to get your hands on, which I think is super valuable. But the Systems Administration course is about thinking like an administrator and getting yourself ready to go get into that role. Because what happens when you sit down like in the chair to be the systems administrator, it's almost like you're one of those two people in front of Captain Kirk or Captain Picard, and you're doing all this stuff and you're running the ship while that person gives you commands. And you've taken the mantle of running this whole company, and you are taking the mantle as an administrator of like maybe tens of thousands, maybe millions of dollars of revenue that could be lost if you hit the wrong reboot. So there's some stuff that could happen. I remember I rebooted a server one time on accident. I'll show you why I did it right here. I'll show you exactly what I did. I won't do it again, but I was on a server and I was pulling a list for somebody, and this is what I was doing. I was catting Etsy past WD, right? Catting that, and then I was doing an awk, and I wanted to cut on the fields of colon, so it's a colon delimited file, and I wanted to only print the first field, right? And I had a security guy come and ask me, hey Scott, can you go pull all of the things? So I went like this and I grabbed all the names out of here, right? And let's see if it's still in there. Hold on. Yeah, there's one that'll do it. Okay. And then what I did was I was going over to a notepad and I was dropping those names in there for each server. And then I came back here and I accidentally right-clicked in PuTTY. And you say, what would a right-click do in PuTTY? Well, if you right-click in PuTTY, it will paste whatever's in your paste buffer. So this is what happened. That's not... Whoops, it went like this. It went right here. That's not a command. That's not a command. That's not a command. That's a command, but you need -fr now or something. That is a command, and it halted the system, and it shut the server down. And I was like, what the hell just happened? I went, oh shit! I had the wrong thing in my paste buffer, and I took down a Supreme Court server. Say Supreme Court of the United States of America. Yep, took down one of their servers. This was back in 2014, completely on accident. But it was not a production server. It was down. It was in their like in one of their lower environments back before. And it came back up, and I did a write-up of what happened, and I said what my mistake was or whatever, and they were like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is, I didn't try to hide things, right? Because I know the mantle of like what I'm wearing. Most of these things are not commands. Halt is a command. Yep. So is reboot, and I think reboot's not here anymore. I don't see reboot on here. Shutdown is a command, but if you do shutdown by itself, it won't do anything. Rodom, it was a little dicey there. A little dicey, and I'm pretty good as an engineer. At least like I know what I'm doing most of the time, but it was just a fat finger middle click, or it was a right click on a server. Because like, look, if I just go take, let me take all this away. Just say test, right? And then I hit Control C here, so that's my paste buffer. And I come here and I right click, it'll just put test. And if I had happened to have a new line character on there, and that's what I saw down the thing, command not found, command not found, command not found, disconnected from server, and I was like, and I looked, and shutdown, watch this, shutdown will just give you like a, I can't shut down, or actually they must have modified the command, but shutdown used to not work like that. When was shutdown scheduled for? Oh, it was going to be in a few seconds. It was a minute away. But it used to be when you did shutdown like that, it wouldn't do anything without the dash now, or just the now at the end or whatever. So, yeah. Well, hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys. You know, I'm gonna get off of here. This is not, again, this stuff's not part of the class proper. The class will be much more structured. That's run down in our Discord. If anybody's like, hey, how do I find the class? You come up here to events, and look, we're at 183 people. We had 90 the first week. Then we had 50, then we had 48, and I was telling you guys it's all attrition. People are going to leave. But I feel like people are going to come and go as they can, right? Not everybody's going to make it. It's at 3 p.m. my time, but if you check it in your time, Discord will show that in your time. So it's 3 p.m. my time. I do it right in the middle of the day. Yeah, Robodom, it's like you guys are all assimilating into one engineer. One of my favorite things about this, and we tested this the other day, even if you're not in any of these chats, so you're not in any of these threads exist. If you were to just come over here and search for like SE Linux, it would actually pop up with SE Linux. Oh wow, yeah, 3 a.m. is a bit early to get to that. So maybe just watch, because I always record them on that Sunday after, so you guys can do the Sunday after and see them. Okay, so all right. I have been on, let's see, I've been on 3 hours. Wow, I did not mean to be on for 3 hours today. But I'm going to drop off of here. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, there's a section in our Discord that you can ask questions. If you're just like, hey, you know, that's interesting, but, you know, I need to know more about this or whatever. There's always the, look, there's always the beginner start here. That's a place for people that are new. We've got all the Killer Coda labs and stuff that we've talked about, and I'm not the only one building labs. We've actually had 3 other people build labs now. Yeah, at least 3 other people build labs, and some of them are maintained under my repos. But Fisherman runs his own, and then you guys can go find all the labs. Labs are free. Killer Coda's never charged me nothing. I told you guys, I've been using Killer Coda for like 3 years now. They've never charged me a damn thing. I abused their systems when I was getting my CKA and my CKAD. I built my own Kubernetes clusters, but I used their cluster. I would run through like 10, maybe even like 10 of those every hour while I was working. I would just be popping up new ones and running through stuff, and it's free. Yeah, everything in my Discord is free. Yes, so Atal, it's definitely free. If you go to the Discord, people actually asked this before. They're like, hey, do I got to pay anything? No, you just come down. We'll all be down in this conferences and guest speakers. The reason we're down here is because we found that we were going to do it in Linux chat, but what happened was Linux chat, if you have over 60 people in there, it doesn't work very well anymore. Plus with the conference, it's just me speaking one direction. By the way, the wife just got home, so I got to get off of here, but let's check on Ranger. There's Ranger. All right. I'm going to go find somebody to raid real quick. I appreciate you guys coming by. If you guys need any of these sheets, they're up in the Discord in the networking section as well. Yeah, we like breaking stuff. Let's go find somebody to raid. Again, hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys. Mostly what I'm doing here is just trying to find things and do things that are good. Let's go raid. Oh, my buddy's not on. All right, we're going to go hit Clonk. So if you guys don't know Clonk, he's always doing smart IT stuff and writing little bots and doing other fun little stuff. People on YouTube, unfortunately, the raid won't take you anywhere. But for the rest of you guys, I will see some of you tomorrow. And yeah, I will see you guys around. Give this 5 more seconds and then take care.